and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, thank you. And why does the paper have to go over, ladies, and not under? Over's better. Guys don't care, right? I care. Over. Oh, God.
Over is the correct answer.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Let's get into it the next 4 hours. We've got you heading up until 2 o'clock. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, and Beards. We will talk some NFL football today. A few days away from Super Wildcard Weekend getting underway. It's no longer Wildcard Weekend. It is Super Wildcard Weekend. And then you wonder how many years in a row does it take before they drop the Super, and it's just simply, hey, now you have 6 games. And you've had 6 games for like 10 years in a row.
Now it's just more regular season.
Is it just Wild Card Weekend? When does it go back to Wild? Just popped in my head, like Super Wild Card Weekend. They called it that 2 years ago when they expanded the playoffs to 7 teams in each side, and so you had 6 games instead of 4. There's now 3 years of Super Wild Card Weekend. Does it ever go back to just Wild Card Weekend, or does it have to say Super?
Now we have a Super Wild Card Weekend game on Monday night. Okay. So I think what it does now is it pivots into Wild Card Super Weekend.
Oh, okay.
Because the weekend has now expanded to 3 days.
Okay.
The game number isn't changing anymore, but maybe...
Super Weekend meaning you get a Monday.
You basically get to count that Monday as a national holiday. You get a playoff game on Monday night. It's a win-win.
It is this Monday, so got that working for you.
I feel like this is playing out perfectly.
Okay. I don't know why that popped into my head. I'm like, Super Wild Card. What? It's 3 years now.
To be honest, I never really put this, maybe going back to how long it took for me to realize bronze was a nickname for the third. But I don't think I went, oh wait, they just started calling it Super Wild Card Weekend. I just kind of thought it was like a branding decision the NFL made, which I guess it was.
It was like 3 years ago.
Because they expanded it.
Now it's Super. It's 3 days of Wild Card Weekend. And then, when my son's 20 years old, is it still going to be Super Wild Card Weekend?
It sounds a little hokey. I think eventually the NFL is quietly going to drop the Super, and it's just going to be Wild Card Weekend. And then we're going to have the Super Divisional rounds, which is like in baseball and the College World Series, you have Super Regionals,
That's
you
right.
know? We're going to have Super Regional rounds and Super Wild Card Weekend.
Boy, that's a great point, because in the NFL, the Super begins it and ends it.
Yeah, well,
and
you're right.
Baseball,
we have the Super Bowl.
The Super is the middle.
Yeah, that's a good,
It's the regional, Super Regional, College World Series.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the NFL is maybe specifically trying to say we are the direct opposite of college baseball.
That's what I've always said. The NFL
or
and
if they're
college
just trying to
baseball.
stay out of each other's ways. But I think, look, as we all learned in the hit Disney Pixar film The Incredibles, once everyone's super, no one will be. So we got to be careful about this. We can't be having a super divisional round. We got to stop with the supers.
Sometimes if you're the NFL, you don't need to show your powers.
Exactly.
Sometimes you can just hide in plain sight.
Exactly.
Do you need to say super? It's the NFL. Everything about you is already super. If everything turns into be super, does it Super Week 18? Does it
Super Week 18? I think is what it would be.
What I'm asking is, does Super Wild Card Weekend take away from the Super Bowl?
You are Mr. Incredible, NFL. You can be wearing a short sleeve button up. You're still built like Mr. Incredible. The mask isn't really fooling us here.
No.
You don't have to say, hi, I'm Mr. Incredible. You can just say, I'm Bob.
You say if it's going to take away from the Super Bowl, we got a YouTube comment here. Well, eventually we're going to have the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's
wow.
Great, yeah. Does the Super Bowl turn into the semifinal, and then the Super Bowl actually is the Super Bowl when they expand to 20 teams in the playoffs?
Where does the Super Duper Bowl get involved? Because now we're rhyming, but it's not necessarily more super.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. Not really sure. And where does Elsa fall into this when she's got to hide her powers? And then she just says, "Bleep it." I'm just gonna let it. I'm gonna let it go. That's what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do.
Jason, I don't have kids. I haven't had to watch that movie.
I'm gonna let it go. I know every word to that song.
I imagine you
I'm
do.
sure.
I actually do.
I apologize. I'm sorry for you.
It's not the worst. It's not the worst kids movie. It'll
not
grate
bad.
on you. My
bad.
little sister had a very, very strong Frozen phase, and so I became pretty well versed with the verses of every song in Frozen.
So when my daughter was going to she's at Montessori school now, but before that she was at just a daycare. And so when we would drive there, so the Montessori is like right around the corner, so we don't have time to listen to songs or anything. But
Do
when
they make
we
her shave her hair funny?
they do, yep, that's
Okay.
exactly right.
Those are the same, right?
Exactly this. Everybody knows this. When we were driving to daycare, we would listen. We'd have time for like 3 songs. 2 of them, almost every morning, was "Let It Go," and then "Do You Want to Build a Snowman," which is also from Disney hit
also-
movie Frozen.
From the great film Frozen.
Frozen, Anna, Elsa, and then we would listen to The Grinch with Tyler, the Creator's
Okay,
The Grinch.
hey, that's there's something for you there.
Bad Banana.
I was kind of
So, yeah.
hoping it was gonna be like Bad Banana.
Bad Banana.
I was hoping it was gonna be like Frozen, Avenged Sevenfold. But Tyler the Creator, any other song would be a much riskier track for a drive to school with the kiddos.
Actually, it's odd. It was Frozen, Public Enemy.
Yeah,
that
I
was-
mean,
it was weird.
It's kid picks a song, dad picks a
Yeah.
song, kid picks a song, and you hope that, a little "Do you want to build a snowman" sort of erases some of the lyrics that maybe she picked up in the middle.
Let It Go. Do You Want to Build a Snowman? 3-6 Mafia.
Yeah, exactly.
You get 2, I get 1.
That's a fair
every
trade.
2 songs for you, I get 1.
Here in
all
the
right.
Anderson car, 3 songs in a row, no commercial breaks. 1 for the kids, 1 for dad, 1 for the kid again.
Do you want to build a snowman? Let it go. Slop on my... That is a very quick, random third song.
On my icicle is what I was just going to say, on my icicle. I don't see the problem here.
All right, let's let that go. 913-912-4810. Let's build a segment. All right.
Do you want to build a segment?
So the people will stay and listen?
That's awfully presumptuous, but I guess
I never
we could
listen
try.
anymore.
That's also, yeah.
The show is poor. I wish you'd gone away. Myron Medcalf coming up at noon, college basketball insider from ESPN.
Beards, whenever we get about 10 minutes deeper, just go ahead and let Jason know that we need to let it go to break. That can be your line. Just don't forget that. Go ahead and put that one in the chamber
Please.
here for about 10 minutes.
I'm not singing.
Okay. Mick
Coward.
Shaffer will join us at 1 o'clock, also known as the songbird of his generation by those that have heard him sing. KSHB 41 sports director. And in the 1 o'clock hour, of course, we have Sad Fans today. Sad Fans, shot clock reviews.
I need to put the final touches on it. The final touches. I need to throw music on it, but it'll be good to go.
Few touches left for Sad Fans coming up. Let's hope there are 3 more editions of Sad Fans for the Chiefs. 3 more installments of Sad Fans. That would be great. But that's coming up today. Raiders edition. And I don't know if there will be any cameos or anything like that, but Raiders edition today at 1 o'clock with Mick Shaffer.
I don't ever want to speak for Beards on the Sad Fans, so I'm just trying to figure out what the tease is going to be. I think, Jason, I think it's going to be a good one. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't hear these in advance. I just get to see Beards in the lab, and sometimes you can tell from how maniacal he is.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell how good he thinks it's going to be.
That's his version of Snow Globe.
That's right.
He's in the lab,
He's in
just
the lab,
working on different plays.
spinning in circles and just
Ferrari. What if?
being disrespectful.
Hold on, Coach. Can I go in motion?
This is
Remember that
Beards.
with the whole Ferrari? Mahomes was like, I didn't know I had to ask. Can I go in motion? Like, yeah. Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to call it. I got a new car recently. What kind of car? Ferrari. Let's call it the Ferrari package.
go ahead and call it
Let's go ahead and
Ferrari.
call it Ferrari then. And a lot of different plays off of that. Just as I don't know if the next time they come out in that formation that they ran against the Raiders that everybody seems to be universally appreciative of and likes, if they do the ring around the rosy before they go out there, or if they just go in that same formation and they run different looks off of that because, McKinnon probably could have kept it. He probably could have handed off. Mahomes probably could have thrown it. He also threw it back to Tony. There were a number of different things they could do on that probably would have worked based on like replays. And you wonder if they, do that again without the ring around the rosy, or they just say, you know what, bleep you. You know what, let's go full antagonist. And every time we get down inside the 5-yard line, we're going to do ring around the rosy, even if we just go in regular.
Every single snap. Can you imagine? Poor Creed Humphrey would just be on his back by like the 4th one, I think.
They'll start coming up with different iterations as to how they go to the line of scrimmage. It'll be like, remember the Titans when they walked onto the field. One of those will be remember the Titans going to the line of scrimmage. And then from dodgeball, Global Gym, I think, when they were coming out with like the snakes. They could do one of those things heading up to the line of scrimmage.
Got to do a flying V. Got to do a flying V.
Flying V, absolutely. Flying V could be one of those. Just let's have some fun with this. Let's have some fun with our fun. Let's really and when it happens, if the NFL and the Chiefs, if their social media could package that in one specific play, and then directly tweet Quinn Miners,
just tag him
to see if he's watching that game while also not participating.
I'd like for the Chiefs to break a huddle at the 50 in the red zone, but they break the huddle at the 50, get in formation at the 50, and then just march down to the ball as one total unit, and then just set, immediately snap it, and then go ahead and score there.
No, it's
that's like it would be like a Revolutionary War march at that point.
They break the huddle at the 50, and they West Side Story.
That's also very good. I don't know why we can't have both.
And then left.
Yeah.
At an angle.
Yeah, this is
and then
right a good evolution.
At an angle, all the way down to like the 5. And then they line up in the other
45 yards.
And right as they get there, the ref throws the flag. Delay of game.
It's got to be a delay. I mean, there's no chance.
It was worth it.
They don't call delay a game anymore.
Well, that's a good point.
They certainly didn't on Russell Wilson.
That's a good point.
Boy, how many delay of games were there with Russ?
You get all the way to the look. The rule says you get to the 0, and then the ref kind of has that beat to like get to the flag and throw it. But then they'll take another 4 or 5 seconds just to collect their thoughts, decide what they want to do for dinner, and then they'll consider throwing the flag.
Make sure that's not an 8 up there on the clock.
Gotta make sure it's not an 8. Maybe the clock just like burnt out in the middle there. You gotta make sure.
I'm pretty sure the back judge, when he saw the clock go to 0, he looked down to his phone to send a text.
Yeah. Like, let me check the time here. Okay.
Waiting for approval from the league. Hey, can I throw this flag?
Yes. They're going to buzz me here in a second and tell me to throw this flag, I think.
The proper protocol and technique is to look at the clock when it hits 0, then to look down, and that's what I'm doing.
At your shoes, tie those up, double knot them, then get your flag. Oh, they snapped it. Okay,
honey,
no penalty.
I'll eat when I get home, okay?
We'll be right.
I'll be right there. It'll hold. I can heat it back up. It's a casserole. It'll stay.
Honey, you know that I'm safe. I'm currently on television.
Not doing my job.
I'm texting right now at the 50-yard line. Hold on. They're doing the West Side Story thing.
I'll wave.
I'll wave.
Let's hear from Bill Self, who his team found a way to win another close game. They have 3 of their 4 conference wins are by a total of 9 points. Down by 15 to Oklahoma State, they make that comeback. Texas Tech, they take care of that game there late. Oklahoma down by 10 with, 5 minutes to play. So they erased essentially the Oklahomas. They erased 25 points in the second half, 10 of those coming in the final 5 minutes to win by 3 and then 4 against Oklahoma last night. This team is sort of living by the skin of their teeth right now, but they're finding ways to win. And in this conference, if you're winning close games, it may come back to bite you, or you're collecting W's where other teams might have been collecting losses, and that puts you in a great position to win the league. Here's Bill Self on his team and their ability to win these close games.
I think that's one thing here over time, and it probably goes back for decades, but players think that they're going to win here. Granted, we're playing with fire, so we've got to tighten some things up or we won't. But guys think that when it's time to compete, that's when they kind of enjoy it the most, and that's what good teams do. Guys, there was a lot of games last year you could say, oh God, had that win at OU and the win against Oklahoma here, it's like, ooh, got lucky there. and that team goes on and does pretty well. So it's what you do when you have really good seasons. Is you win games where it wasn't a percentage play, and that was certainly tonight not a percentage play.
You can't coach that, right? I mean, for a kid to have that kind of belief, just
no. No. To give the kids, no. They deserve the credit on that, and Jalen's confidence is supreme. He'll go to bed remembering his 3 makes and not remembering the 9 misses. I guarantee it. But and that's the way it should be. But the thing about it is, I'm not sure with young players it's near as easy to do as it is with older players that have been through it before. Like, to me, like a freshman, he may be confident, but it's a little bit different being confident when things haven't gone well at all for 35 minutes, and then you be your best when and being able to focus and compete and all that stuff. And guys that have just been in the wars, these kids have played in so many big games. They actually enjoy it. So that's a big bonus.
It builds on itself. You win these games late. You win close games, which then gives you more confidence in other close games that you're going to make the plays, whereas Oklahoma felt like they were doing so many things right, except for hitting threes. That's, you go 2 of 17 from 3, but they built a 10-point lead without doing that, without hitting those threes. And then it felt like as the momentum was rolling for Kansas, and Kansas was scoring, and the defense was clearly playing up another notch or 2, that then Oklahoma, and maybe, give credit to Kansas and the defense they can play, certainly with Bill Self. We know that's a calling card. But then it felt like Oklahoma was just not running some of the same action we saw earlier, not good offensive possessions, open shots they weren't knocking down. And whether that's, being in the moment before or not being in the moment, where KU's not knocking down shots, Jalen Wilson scoreless for a while, and then still ends up with 17. I mean, he's averaging 20 a game, and did he score in the first half? I don't remember Jalen Wilson putting buckets in the first half, but he ends up with 17 because he gets to the free throw line 12 times. He only makes 3 shots. Grady Dick was 1 of 8 on the day, but yet still, when it counted, was making plays, and that's a freshman that's doing that. So it starts to build on itself, and you win the close games, you get the experience, you get more confidence, so it helps you win other close games, whereas other teams may not have that particular experience. And if you're Kansas, you're more than likely the better team, and you're the one making the comeback where the other team feels like, oh my God, we're letting this upset slip away. Oh my God, we were up by 10. Now we're only up by 3. Oh no, we're trailing. Well, you're toast. You're toast because you become the team that's panicking and not the team that was the higher ranked team that's all of a sudden on upset alert at their own building.
I don't even think it's like a local overemphasis on this front. I think this is something that nationally carries this weight. Unlike much of anything else in sports, maybe a couple other collegiate spots might be able to claim this, but there is absolutely a mystique around Allen Fieldhouse and specifically KU basketball always being good certainly helps that from ever really waning. But up 10 points with 5.5 minutes or so left in a game at Allen Fieldhouse buys you nothing. No. Like, that ends up being the bare minimum if you want to be in the game at the end. And even just hearing Bill Self talk that way in that clip post-game, I feel like a lot more often than not, a 4-point win near upset at home has Bill Self at the podium talking about how, we're just not that good. We're just young. We're just not very smart. We're just not very good right now. That's not what we just heard from him there for a minute and a half. What we heard from him there for a minute and a half was you got to have the confidence to remember the 3 makes and forget the 9 misses if you're Jalen Wilson, that he has that. You have to build on top of this throughout the rest of your season, which is interesting because this is obviously a different team than the one that just won the national championship. But Bill Self sounds, hear the hesitance in my voice, pretty happy with this team in January. That's kind of a weird thing to be able to say out loud. But you have a game like that. If you want to take it through the optimist's viewpoint, it doesn't have to be needing overtime to beat the Texans. It can be, we had a 10-point deficit that we erased in Allen Fieldhouse because we're the bleeping Jayhawks.
Yeah, so it's that balance of, look, you got to have confidence. Like these guys, they know how to win. They've done those things. And then also saying, boy, we did a lot of things wrong. I mean, they did so many things right. You know, we missed so many layups, and what was the number, like 21 layups they missed, which layup is such a generic term. It's like they didn't have breakaway dunks and layups that they just missed bunnies.
Not all layups are created equal in terms of ease.
And Bill Self even said, like, yeah, but those, you gotta win through contact.
Yep.
And that was one of the things people talked about Jalen Wilson last year. Like, hey, Jalen, if you're not going to be able to finish through contact, you're not going to the NBA. I mean, if you can't take a body and finish, you might as well return to college one more year to show that, one, you can be the man. Consistently, we know you can shoot the rock. We know you can score. We know you can follow. We know you can get the offensive rebounds. But then finishing through contact, being much more consistent at that. And so even Bill Self, like, missed some layups, but, look, it's the Big 12. You got to finish those in contact. You got to be ready to go. And, not every night you're going to be able to bring it, but how do you find a way to win those games? Let's take a time out on the other side. I want to talk about K-State and what they have done and the story of the Wildcats. And Jerome Tang had a clip last night, had a comment last night after the game that I thought was really, really fascinating and an inside look that I don't think I've ever heard from a coach before in building a team coupled with building a schedule to fit said team and how you go about that. And K-State picking up their 15th win last night when they had 14 last year. K-State and Mizzou, in their most recent wins, got one more win than what they had all of last year. Mizzou had 12 wins last year. They beat Vandy for their 13th win this year on Saturday. K-State had 14 wins last year. They win last night, and they get win number 15 this year. So I want to take a time out to talk about what K-State has done and hear from Jerome Tang. A really fascinating comment from Jerome Tang from last night's win for Kansas State, both local teams winning, and it certainly feels like we are barreling towards top 10 matchup between KU and K-State in the Octagon. So I want that to be the case on Tuesday night, 6 days from now. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. You're in the zone.
Food here?
Yeah, we'll keep asking questions.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jesse.
With Jason Anderson
I was just curious.
Harry, I'm sorry, the food's here.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, Beards hanging out. We had up until 2 o'clock. Got you for the next now 3.5 hours. We'll talk with Cynthia Frelund at 11 o'clock, some NFL football, NFL Network analytics expert, and also Myron Medcalf coming up at noon, our college hoops insider from ESPN. KU, K-State both winning last night. Mizzou in action tonight as they take on Texas A&M down in Texas. So we'll see what happens with Mizzou if they can get conference win number 3 as they face off against A&M. That's 2-0 in conference with wins over Florida and LSU. So that game comes up tonight, 7:30.
Can I offer you 2 quick small pieces of news?
I like it.
One of them, a very just feel-good update. The Buffalo Bills have announced that Damar Hamlin has been discharged from Buffalo General Medical Center / Gates Vascular Institute. Hamlin was admitted on Monday and went through a comprehensive medical evaluation as well as a series of cardiac, neurological, and vascular testing on Tuesday. And then quote here from Jamie Nadler, critical care physician there and chief quality officer at Chaldea Health. Quote, "We have completed a series of tests and evaluations, and in consultation with the team physicians, we are confident that Damar can be safely discharged to continue his rehabilitation at home and with the Bills." So awesome update there. And then just one very different tone that I just thought you would enjoy. Are you familiar with Oregon tight end Cam McCormick?
I'm not.
I won't hold it against you if you're not. He's entered the transfer portal as a grad transfer. This is from Max Olson on Twitter. McCormick won the Orange Bowl FWAA Courage Award this season after missing nearly all of 2018 through 21 due to injuries. He'll be an 8th-year senior in 2023.
Is that the same guy
we
we
may
were
have
talking
talked about this guy actually on this show. I can't remember.
Right, because
the name didn't stick, but the idea of a 7-year
Right.
senior did. 8th-year senior Cam McCormick.
Now, is this 8th year as a senior, or is it 8th year in college and now he's a senior?
It's technically, at this point, it's his 8th year as a senior citizen.
You know what he is? He's a super senior.
Wow, he's a super duper 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 duper
That's right.
duper 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 senior.
Also, you know who's a super senior? Marquise Noel. He has been unbelievable this year. And all he's done in Big 12 play, if you care about things like this, and people may not, I don't know. All he's done in Big 12 play is average 28 and 10. 28 points and 10 assists per game in the 4 games. That's all he's done so
If he
far.
could just get to 30 and 10, it would sound cooler.
How about a couple extra points per game? You can't put in one more bucket per game? Oh, I'm shooting NBA threes. Yeah, how about another bucket? How about a free throw or 2? You know, get to 30. Lazy. That's what it is. How about this? How about one less assist and take it yourself?
Yeah.
You know, be
a little more selfish.
Or be less selfish.
Wow.
Be less selfish.
Stop padding your assist numbers.
Do it for us.
Wow.
Is 30 and 9.5 better than 28 and 10?
You got to keep the 10. No, you got to keep the 10. No,
you
10's
gotta
too
keep
good.
He's been unbelievable. He's been unbelievable, and the shots that he's hitting are also big shots in clutch moments. He did it last night as well. He did it against Texas on the road. Like, they've won a game in which they both scored in the hundreds, and then they win a game in which they hold Oklahoma State below 60. I mean, it's finding different ways to win, whatever it calls for that night, which is, by the way, a sign of a good team.
Yes.
Do we got to score a lot of points to win? Okay, we'll have to score a lot of points to win tonight. Is it going to be a lower possession, lower scoring game? Okay, defense better come and play. And we're going to do that against Oklahoma State tonight. And we're going to hold them to 0.8 points per possession in the game. And we're going to do what we can. And Keontae Johnson's going to do enough inside the arc. And Noel's going to be phenomenal and do what he does typically in the game. And he's been offensive MVP all 4 games of Big 12 play for K-State at Ken Palm. And by the way, the MVP doesn't go to the winning team specifically. It just goes to the person who had the most efficient offensive rating game. And he's 4 for 4 in his in the Big 12 games. Out of everybody that played in that game, it has been Marquise Noel 4 for 4. He has been absolute dynamite. And they win this game. And there certainly is a difference between playing a game when the number one, or a number, I should say, is next to your name, where K-State is now playing. There is a one, but
K-State has 2 number ones by their names.
That's right. You're darn right. Do that twice. When you've got that, it's different than when you're trying to get that, because the expectations change.
Sure.
You go down to Texas and you win, and it's like, oh, what a great win. What an awesome win. And it really was. I mean, it's, top 20 team, top 10 team, winning at Baylor in overtime. Awesome win. Oklahoma State last night was a good win in terms of how they played and what we saw from Noel and the phenomenal dunk. The ability for Noel to see where he was guarded and then get the ball where it was to Keontae Johnson. And then for Keontae Johnson just to disrespect Oklahoma State like that, to grab the ball in air and then cock it back.
It's such a good dunk.
And then dunk it.
Quinn Minor's shaking.
He's thinking about that the rest of the offseason. You know what Keontae Johnson could have done? Catch the ball, lay it in. That's what a good sport would do.
You know what he could have done? Caught it, put it on the ground, jogged down to play some defense. Hello.
He could have also caught it, laid it up with your left hand, very fundamentally sound, because you're on the left side of the basket, and then went and played defense. Instead, he catches it one hand, cocks it back, flushes it through, looks like he almost rips the net.
You know what he should have done? He should have gone up, caught it, brought it down, handed it to the ref.
Per Schefter.
Keontae Johnson had another dunk. Per Schefter, Quinn Miners weighs in on Keontae Johnson's dunk.
No Tua on their game this weekend.
Okay.
No Tua.
Mike McDaniel said, "We will be approaching the game today as if Skylar Thompson is our starting quarterback." On Teddy Bridgewater, quote, "He's working to prepare himself to be capable on Sunday. He can't afford any setbacks."
I'm guessing.
Upset alert, not looking great.
I'm guessing the next time we see Tua play will be the regular season.
Who do you think it'll be for?
Miami.
Okay.
I'm guessing the next time we see Lamar Jackson play, it will be the first game of the regular season next year for a different team.
Good tweet here from Nate Geary on Twitter. Looks like the Bills ended up with the first round bye after all.
Ouch. He's been diagnosed with 2 concussions this year, Tua has.
Yeah.
Kind of think he's had 3, though, right?
Everybody kind of thinks we're calling it 2.5.
Tua?
And taking the over. Yeah.
2.5 concussions this year. So, yeah, I don't expect to see him out there playing. And plus, it's so much different than Lamar Jackson in that he has to be cleared by an independent neurological guy.
And it's also
I didn't go to neurology school to be called guy.
Yeah.
So you got to be cleared by the independent doctor there with the Dolphins, as opposed to, hey, Lamar, pain tolerance.
And you
Can
can't
you go out there and do that with your knee.
You can't put a brace on your brain. You could try the knee brace or whatever could definitely change Lamar Jackson's game a little bit. You can't artificially stabilize your brain at this point.
Yeah. So Kansas State gets the win last night against Oklahoma State in a fun game, and if the Octagon isn't back yet, I think it'll be a pretty fun atmosphere on Tuesday. That if KU and K-State both win this weekend, and it's not going to be easy for K-State to get the win at TCU this weekend. KU plays Iowa State. Those are always fun matchups. If they both win, it will be a top 10 matchup in Bramlage against 2 teams that are undefeated in conference play and both teams riding 10-game winning streaks. So something has to give if they both win this weekend, and I want that to happen to set up on Tuesday. I don't want there to be some spoiler to where Jamie freaking Dixon and his Dracula hair somehow, win, even though, Ken Pom has TCU winning this
I always
weekend.
think of him with big arms because of the sign with the big swinging
that's
arms.
Right.
That's my Jamie Dixon word association. This is the best college basketball has been locally.
It's been awesome.
In how long? Even extended to Mizzou, who isn't, currently on the flawless streak anymore. But this is the best.
Still ranked.
Yeah, the best local. I mean, I'm sure there is an empirical way to say the last time they were all ranked or whatever. But this feels like the best local college basketball environment we have had here in a very long time.
And I think one of the things I want to talk to Myron Medcalf about is, are we getting lessons from how quickly coaches can turn things around at programs, and not just from these two local schools. I mean, Iowa State last year. I mean, Iowa State won 2 games the year before, and then they go to the Sweet 16 last year. In year 1 of a new coach. I mean, heck, we're talking about TCU and Jamie Dixon, what he's done at TCU. Alabama, their quick turnaround with Nate Oates. Musselman at Arkansas, from where it got stale with Mike Anderson, and quickly turned around there at Arkansas. Tommy Lloyd with Arizona when it got stale with Sean Miller, and then boom, they're a 1 seed in the Sweet 16, and now they're 14-2 this year. So, but here's a fascinating clip from Jerome Tang that is an inside look as to their offseason and building the team, at the same time building a schedule for what that team's going to be and how they get to success this year and trying to get to the tournament. Take a listen to Jerome Tang in what it means for this team to get their 15th win last night, which is one more than they got all of last year, and how this sort of came to be this year.
I think the whole thing is kind of surprising. Like, you know, when you start, like we started in the summer, when we got here in March and April, like we kind of looked at the team and said, how many wins you think we got with this team? And it just, we didn't see enough wins because we want to go to the tournament, right? And so then we started bringing guys in. As we started bringing guys in, we started saying, okay, how many wins do we see? And the young men that are here, we were showing them the non-conference schedule. Hey, can we go 10-1 in the non-conference? You know, and I think Kevin Pagua told us if we saw 10 wins in our non-conference, then schedule another high major game. That's why we scheduled Cal. But if we didn't see 10 wins in the non-conference, then schedule a bye game so you can get yourself to 10, because if you can win 8 in the Big 12, you go to the NCAA tournament. Okay, so that was kind of our mindset as we're putting everything together. Never did we think we'd be 15-1 right now, right? That wasn't it. But our approach is not as such as that, hey, look at the whole season. We just, like, the next thing, like tomorrow, like all we're thinking about tomorrow is them resting and recovering, and, you know, like we try not to look too far down the road. So looking back, the whole thing's surprising, right? But, I mean, you saw tonight, you saw over the last few games, we got some dudes, right? And they're just making plays, man, like big-time plays. It's just, I shake my head quite a bit and smile and clap and say thank you, Jesus, you know?
I love Jerome Tang. That I've never thought about. I mean, I know that teams build their non-conference for the team they have. If you're ready to be challenged, then you have a tougher non-conference. Mm-hmm. If you're building and have a lot of new players, Missouri's non-conference was non-competitive, essentially, outside of they knew they had KU and Illinois. So they add in one other team in UCF that's not even like high major. But other than that, it was kind of like, you know, Institute of No Thumbs for a number of games. And they went 11-1 in the non-conference, doing what they felt like, hey, probably need to do. K-State went 10-1. What Jerome Tang said, are we at 10? Do we see 10 wins? If we do, let's add another high major team. Okay, there's Cal, which kind of was a bye game because Cal isn't all that great this year, but it's still not specifically a bye game where, hey, here's your $200,000. Thank you for coming in and taking your loss. We feel more confident about that win. But I do wonder, like, each player that they started to bring in, like, how many wins did they get? Like, hey, here's
which
Jesse
game
Sills.
does this guy flip, you know? Like,
okay, we got Keontae Johnson. Let's add Cal. We get Keontae Johnson goes somewhere else. Let's get a bye game in here. But it's been phenomenal, and I know coaches do that, but to hear behind the scenes of them saying, as we're getting players in, we're then looking and doing the calculation over and saying, okay, now how many wins do we think we have? Because we need to get to 10-1. We need to get to 10 wins in the non-conference so that if we go 8-10 in conference, we can get to 18 wins and we'll be right there with a chance to make the tournament. And that's all we want to do this year, give ourselves a chance to make the tournament. Well, they've done more than that.
Jerome Tang is the only thing he's still doing like an assistant is talking like one, because the head guy doesn't often give you the rundown of, all right, we gotta get 10 wins here, and if we don't like our roster, we're gonna add a bye game. You don't even hear coaches call it a bye game very often. That's kind of disrespectful.
And B-U-Y, not B-Y-E, by the way.
Right. Like, we are going this route, or we're going to try to find a real program to really test us. We are seeing games flip from our talent level one to another. The idea of even going through a schedule and projecting your own record, obviously that's happening behind closed doors, but how often do coaches talk about doing that? Never. Most of the time, they'll try to make you believe they don't even know who they're playing next. Some players might legit not, especially NFL level. You have a whole week and all of that. But I find that clip incredibly refreshing and really reflective of how they got to this point.
Yeah, and also, like, the guys that were there in March were like, hey, what about me?
That's the thing.
You
Like,
didn't see- hold on. How many wins did you think you had when it was just us?
was I going to get us over Rhode Island? Were you concerned about Rhode Island?
Was I the UT Rio Grande Valley? Because I think he was the California ad. But who was I?
Did I at least guarantee you win over Incarnate Word?
Was I Abilene Christian or Radford? Which one was I? But no, it's been a phenomenal story. And it's not just a good story. That's a freaking good team right now. And obviously Jerome Tang can coach. And you need some players to make big plays, but you also have to get the players too. And this team is fun. I hope they go down to TCU and win that game. KU beat Iowa State, and we have 5-0 versus 5-0 in the Big 12, and that would be 16-1 versus 16-1, both 5-0 in the Big 12, playing at the Octagon of Doom on Tuesday at, I believe I don't even know what time.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, okay. Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this hour coming up next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I'm going to take the $20 and put it on Jalen Daniels. No.
I'll give you a quarter for it.
A whole quarter. I'll give Audrey a quarter, too.
Sound like a movie reference.
I can't. I'm just so disappointed in that it sounds like a movie reference.
I'm disappointed that you still have the capacity of being disappointed in me. My parents gave up much
No, there's
sooner.
a lot of capacity for disappointment.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We'll talk with Cynthia Frelund coming up, NFL Network analytics expert. Looking forward to that conversation. Playoffs getting underway. They are starting. We don't know. I haven't seen any reports or anything for Ravens practice if Lamar Jackson has been seen in the media portion.
I saw something earlier that he was still had some knee swelling, but that was about it.
Ian Rappaport said that it is becoming more and more of a, looks like an uphill battle for Lamar Jackson to play on Sunday night. It is good that it's Sunday for them and they're not playing on the Saturday. So they play the last game of Sunday. So other than it being the Bucks and Cowboys time slot of Monday night, it's as long a time as they can give you to get ready. But I haven't seen anything with Lamar Jackson. So ask her about it. Are there upsets a-brewing this weekend? Cynthia Frelund next.
Cousins in.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I'm going to take the $20 and put it on Jalen Daniels. No.
I'll give you a quarter for it.
A whole quarter. I'll give Audrey a quarter, too.
Sounds like a movie reference.
I can't. I'm just so disappointed in that it sounds like a movie reference.
I'm disappointed that you still have the capacity of being disappointed in me. My parents gave up much
No, there's
sooner.
a lot of capacity for disappointment.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Talking some NFL football. The report from NFL Network that Tua is out, which isn't really a surprise. And then Ian Rappaport, or as we like to call him, Rappaport, saying that Lamar Jackson faces an uphill battle to play on Sunday night, missing the last 5 games. Let's talk some NFL football. The playoffs coming up this weekend. Joining us now, analytics expert from NFL Network, Cynthia Frelund. Cynthia, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I am doing just fine. The playoffs are upon us, and very much looking forward to that. Chiefs have the 1 seed. Real quick, and then I want to look into the Chiefs specifically, but this is just sort of general for you. I know we talked home field advantage last week and how much that matters or doesn't matter and things like that for a team. The bye week, though, I went back and looked just to see how many of the teams, that had a bye that ultimately got to, the championship game of their conference or even into the Super Bowl. Is that the most important thing of the playoffs? If you're looking at one particular thing, is it a home game? Is it a good matchup? Is it the team that gets to enjoy that automatic win and the week off?
Well, in reality, the good matchup is always going to be helpful, but of all the things that are predictive, the ability to have the game off has been consistently the most important. Now, you have to also remember that the team that gets the game off, well, they also get to face the lowest seed remaining in every case. So you're also kind of putting off the harder teams for longer too. So not only do you get the game off, but you also get like another week to prepare for the harder team or the theoretically harder team in most cases.
Yeah, that's why I looked at the number 1 seed in their coming off a bye are 19-9 in the last 5 years. Teams that have had a bye the last 5 years, their first game ended up being 19-9. So there's
pretty convincing.
Yeah,
pretty convincing evidence.
Almost
right there.
a 700 win percentage in that first game. So yeah, the Chiefs obviously have that. They've got that to their advantage. They can take advantage of that. Watch games coming up this weekend. One of the conversations we got into earlier this week, Cynthia, and I'm just curious of your thoughts on it. We were kind of going through and looking at some of the conflicting sort of defensive numbers that may not sort of add up, of like yards that they've given up versus like points. But one of the things that stood out was where they rank in sacking the quarterback in just the, counting stats of 55 sacks this year, number 2 in the NFL, and how many times they've brought the opposing quarterback down versus the number of takeaways they have forced by a defense. And I felt like those things typically go hand in hand, that if you're sacking the quarterback enough times, you're forcing errant throws, or he's hit while he's throwing, fumbling the football, recovering those. Yet the teams around the Chiefs in takeaways, or teams around the Chiefs, I should say, in total sacks, are also near the top or top 10 of takeaways, whereas the Chiefs, number 2 in sacks, number 22 in takeaways. Randomness of the NFL, or something more that the numbers would show that why the Chiefs are have 55 sacks but are ranked 22nd in takeaways as a defense?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. The first, you have to remember the Chiefs haven't played together. This group hasn't played together as long as some of the other teams. 2, there is a certain level of randomness that comes down to, when you're having a lot of takeaways. Sometimes it can be the style of play. Chiefs fans know when Marcus Peters was there, he jumps routes, right? Same, you've seen it with Trayvon Diggs too, which means you kind of get all or nothing on certain plays. So it depends on the style of the player, how they're coached, what they're being asked to do. There's a number of factors that all go into it, and all of them are important. So it's not like, I'm not as worried about that. You can control pressure, and if you're getting good pressure, it's far more predictive of success than explicit takeaways. If you're reliant on takeaways, then you're reliant on something that is not as easy to forecast, control, or really manage. So it's kind of a fickle beast when it comes to that.
Is there typically, though, a correlation with how often you're pressuring or sacking the quarterback to what tends to be a team that has more takeaways than, other teams in the NFL, that they're able to create those?
They're typically related.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, though, is that, you have to remember, the defense in the past few seasons has totally changed. They've had to stylistically change based on what's coming out of college. So, you also have to remember, there are, man versus zone, you're going to get, different results, even if you're able to pressure. The back end of your defense and the front end of your defense, they work together for sure. So, yes, but if you're playing a lot of man versus a lot of zone, you're going to have different results, because just think about, purely the distance from the quarter or from the intended pass catcher that you are, right? So, I hate to say yes. There's no definitive yes or no, because the style really does matter.
Yeah, no, I get it. And one of the things that Steve Spagnuolo talked about maybe a month ago, he was asked about, when you guys aren't getting pressure, you're ranked dead last in quarterback rating. Of all the teams, when they don't get pressure, all defenses, when you don't pressure the quarterback, Chiefs were number 32 in quarterback rating. So it felt like it was just all or nothing. It was so dependent on the pass rush. When they didn't get there, then quarterbacks were having a field day more than they were against other teams. And one of the things he said was, well, if we could intercept the football a few times, that number would that rating number would change. And that's true. I don't know how many interceptions come off of a quarterback that's not pressured, but I was going back and just thinking off the top of my head a couple of days ago, and I'm like, I remember 5 interceptions for the Chiefs that didn't get counted this year. Trent McDuffie has dropped 2, one that hit him in the face mask, another that hit him right in the hands. There were 2 interceptions that were taken away by illegal hands to the face penalties that weren't part of the play somewhere else, which is unfortunate. And then there was another interception that was just simply dropped, right to him and just simply dropped. It's 5 interceptions. Now, you might be able to do that with every other team in the NFL. But if we look at specifically the standings right now in terms of where turnovers are and where the Chiefs rank, if you added 5 more turnovers to their total, they would be number 8 in the league in turnovers. So I think there's something to that as well.
It's a small number, it is one thing if you have these are small numbers that you're working with, right? Hopefully, because in reality, if you had a lot of turnovers, then the quarterback wouldn't continue to start. There'd be a lot of changes, et cetera, et cetera. So, these are small numbers in general. So, like I said, the style matters, the situation matters, and at the end of the day, if it's something where it's causing a team to not be able to win because of it, it's likely because of something else, right? It's not going to come down to explicitly, a turnover is a nice thing, any turnover is a nice thing to have, but consistent pressure is a must-have.
Visiting with Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. We've seen this Chiefs team have some injuries at the wide receiver spot. McCole Hardman's missed a number of games. Juju's missed a couple of games. Tony has missed some games since he was brought on by the Chiefs in the trade. Sky Moore missed last week because of the laceration on his hand. And we haven't seen the full wide receiving core that maybe the Chiefs right now envision what it could be. And with the bye week, if Sky Moore's hand heals with the stitches and McCole Hardman and his, injury heals enough to where he can go out and play. They thought maybe he was going to play in Week 18. It didn't happen, so hopefully 2 weeks he'll be able to go out and play. We've seen what McCole Hardman can do for this team, Cynthia, and we've seen what Kadarius Toney can do for this team, and we've seen at times what Sky Moore can do, even though it's been more limited touches. What is this Chiefs team, and we haven't really seen it, what does it look like if all of those guys are healthy and the Chiefs have Toney and Hardman and maybe even Sky Moore to go along with Juju, MVS, and Travis Kelce?
Well, the reality is we don't know, and who else doesn't know? The other team, which is, you talk about Andy Reid coming off a bye, right? Well, what does that mean? It means you have time for him to be creative and scheme and plan, and Andy Reid in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. That's the same thing. You're giving him more toys to play with, and in higher stakes circumstances, this is what this man does. This is what his career is made off of. So, the reality is we don't know, and that's we've seen Patrick Mahomes this season, lead the league in quick touchdown passes and things that we hadn't seen, necessarily in previous seasons. So that's a testament to how the play design is tailored for the specific people playing, which means if you have now new entities that we're not even sure what they all look like together, what do you think you're going to get?
Yeah.
You're going to get some magic.
Yeah, and I think people are hoping that. I want to make a basketball comparison here because I remember last year talking with you and you saying, the Chiefs are able to spread the field length and width better than, any other team. That they can hit you over the top, but they're also going to spread sideline to sideline. And part of that, obviously, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman being out there playing. And this year, when Mecole Hardman has been injured, Tony injured, there have been some games where Sky Moore was the motion man that we've seen Mecole Hardman be. And Tyreek Hill, for so many years, was the main motion guy on this team. It felt like, with Tyreek and Mecole, and even with Mecole this year and Sky Moore, it felt like a team that could spread the floor. In the NBA, in basketball, that you can shoot some threes and you've got more space to work with. When Hardman and Tony were not there and it was Watson or Sky Moore that were the motion man, I don't know if the numbers backed it up, but it felt like a team that didn't really have a threat outside, and so it kind of felt like you were working a lot of your game inside the arc. And it kind of just felt like it was congested around the middle of the field. While they're still scoring 4 or 5 touchdowns a game, mind you, it just didn't feel as spread out and wide open. Is this team still, when they've lacked those players, are they still able to spread the field sideline to sideline the way they've done in years past and what they try to do certainly end zone to end zone? Are they still able to do that if the specific personnel isn't out there for the Chiefs?
Well, I think they strategically maybe haven't done that because, now you see Travis Kelce lining up in different spots than we are used to Travis Kelce lining up this season and, versus previous seasons. And it's not that they can't, it's that they haven't. So I don't know if it's chicken or egg here, right? Because, on some level, it is smart to change the strategy to accommodate, that is the smartest thing you can do is to change a strategy to accommodate your personnel. But also, as your personnel is growing, remember, a lot of times the timing that's involved in motions and the timing that's involved in pre-snap organization and what is going on ahead of the play going on, that a lot of that comes down to chemistry. And it's not to say that they haven't developed it as of yet, but perhaps in the beginning of the season, that wasn't the best time to try to implement those tactics. You didn't need it. So if you don't need it, then take the thing that works that is going to keep working and then fold it in and weave it in as it makes sense. So that's kind of more my read on that. It's not that they can't or won't. It's just that they didn't for smart reasons to keep themselves in, really good downs and distances. They didn't. Sometimes, if you don't need it, don't do it because some of these things can be. Think about those pre-snap. You've seen it with other teams, pre-snap, just mayhem that happens when it goes wrong, right? So let it happen naturally. Let it unfold as it's supposed to this season.
You mean mayhem, like a ring around the rosy, like a spinning type formation?
I think that's
huddle?
Listen, that was just maybe a little fun, right?
Yeah.
Seems like now that you got this, this chemistry going, I think that that's the kind of thing where let them have some fun. And it wasn't the ring around the rosy's fault that it didn't work out. It was something just a quick, maybe a little dizzy.
That's right. Yeah, it was a pretty poor holding penalty call, I should say. The hold wasn't there. I mean, Humphrey just grabbed the guy and threw him to the ground, and it's that's a hold. Well, it was 10 yards away from where the play was even happening, and the guy was going into the end zone when you threw the flag. Come on. We're not here to watch you. We're here to watch the ring around the rosy, toss to Mahomes, throw back across the field. Come on. And it kind of worked, but I thought it was interesting, Cynthia, that after Tony scored on that play that was called back, then they sent him in motion. They just handed the ball to him, and he went and scored after breaking a tackle and then getting into the end zone. That it's obvious they're trying to find ways to get Kadarius Toney the ball, and they've talked about it, and I think most people watching, myself included, that the impact he's making when he's healthy and out there is more than I thought they would have from him, his ability to make plays and make guys miss. I don't remember the first guy tackling Kadarius Toney since he's got the ball with the Chiefs, unless it's a catch down the field and he catches it and he's hit. Right. But in open space, I don't remember the first guy getting him.
No. I'm with you on that.
And so that's him in the game, and McCole Hardman. We'll see what ends up happening with that. But I'm glad you said it was just some fun for the team.
Yeah, might as well have. My goodness, fun? Who knew?
Yeah.
Allowed to have fun?
No, you're not. But Cynthia Frelund's our guest. I also think this is part of it too. How many teams out there would do something like that? I don't know, not many. But I can bet teams that, one, aren't winning, or maybe aren't having as much fun playing football, or maybe don't have as much of ownership of the offense, and that they can come up with plays and talk with the coach, and they can develop those plays on their own. And then the coach is like, "Yeah, let's run this thing," and give them more of a feel of that they're controlling the offense to some degree. Like, I don't know how many organizations or teams would do that. To me, it's sort of just a feel of, yeah, they're out there just having a blast playing football, and that typically turns into wins.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, not a lot of teams have the benefit of having the type of skill or the absolute when you have Patrick Mahomes and he wants to do something, you're like, okay, let's do it. You don't sit there being like, I don't really know. You can think of a number of quarterbacks where even if they went to the coach and begged, they'd be like, well, maybe we try that, in preseason next year,
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to remember, you're very lucky to have that, right? It's not a normal thing.
Yeah, and also interesting to hear that, it was something that they developed last year and practiced. I mean, Mahomes mentioned that, and then Garrick Dieter, who played with the Chiefs the previous 5 years, talked about it this morning on our morning show, saying, yeah, I remember practicing that last year, that play with spinning around in the huddle. And it's like, yeah, we never got a chance to run it, and then they did. So it wasn't specific for the Raiders or anything like that. It was just, let's run the play here because this is kind of fun. Cynthia Frelund is our guest, NFL Network analytics expert. One of our guests that we have on Thursdays that works for a local website, KC Sports Network, Matt Lane, wrote this week about the Chiefs' usage of 13 personnel of late, that there's been a lot more of that from Andy Reid. And we know Andy Reid likes his tight ends. We know he likes to run the 2 tight end set, but this being the 3 tight end set, and especially interesting when it's Blake Bell as the 3rd tight end and not like Jody Fortson, so it makes you a little less dynamic in the receiving game. Do you make anything of that we've seen as of late, that there have been more 13 personnel plays and sets that Andy Reid has been running as of late? Or is that sort of, you're kind of working through some things while you get into the postseason against some teams that you should probably be able to win, that you're not getting really into your bag and coming up with this dynamic, crazy game plan against the Bills or the Bengals or whoever in the divisional round, that, all right, let's work some things out in 13 personnel here on this drive?
Yes, I think, the other benefit of 13 personnel is, in general, it's a much better situation to, you often see running plays come off of 13 personnel. You often see opportunities for, the quarterback to not get hit as much. So I'm not suggesting it's extremely conservative. I'm suggesting it's trying to really, the running backs have really been effective and efficient. Let's see what else we got from them. I actually think it's potentially creative use for the running backs. It's not, necessarily looks that they're going to show to the opponents that you mentioned. But at the end of the day, it's good to get those reps in when you can see the field better and when you can understand the concept even more. When the defense is a little bit more, thrown off and your opportunities are better, that makes you better when you do have to face a stingier defense or a defense that's not going to give you as much of a nice look or what's the type of look that you'd like to see, right? It puts you in a position where you're able to sort of learn things. And I think that's part of what it is too, is the ability to really see how the run can develop and new run concepts that potentially they're working out, that they just say, okay, well, if you can do it in this, you can also do it in when it's less favorable situations.
And I do wonder, too, how much it's you work on some things so that, the defense, depending on their game plan or their scheme, if you come out in 13 personnel, are they then going to match in just base personnel? And now if you've got Juju or Tony or McCole Hardman on the outside, and you've got Kelsey, and Gray's been pretty good, and McKinnon out of the backfield, all of a sudden you've probably created some mismatches, and you probably are less dynamic in the back end of the secondary with coverages if you're in your base personnel against, 3 tight ends and, 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, that you can create some things there. In fact, the Justin Watson huge play down the sideline against the Raiders to start the game. That was 13 personnel. He came in motion and just did a wheel, around the edge and, beat his guy down the field because there was so much congestion there in the middle. So some of those things too. I just wonder how much it's, hey, we'll get the matchup. We don't have to have 3 or 4 wide receivers out here to get the matchup because Kelsey's there. McKinnon's been so good out of the backfield. It's still Patrick Mahomes. And if they're not going to be, dynamic in the backfield or the secondary, and we got 3 linebackers out here, I'll take my chances in what we can do offensively. And that's even in the passing game and not just simply running it downhill.
Yeah, you're giving yourself more options for, the same plays. Like, that's just truly how you get to be even better, right? Like, that's where the chemistry comes together. And now you are giving, look, like Lou Anarumo has done a really good job against Patrick of in second halves of games, like evolving the Bengals defense to match what he's seen. Well, now you put new wrinkles and folds, and maybe 2 or 3 plays, which often is the difference in those games, right? You're gonna get in his head a little bit more, and you're gonna put the opportunity for, hey, should I, to question himself or to question what he's seeing on the field and what, Andy Reid could be throwing out. Like, those are the types of things where, like, that's where you get, like, a really big edge. And so I think there is some of that in there, creating just new little wrinkles and folds to add some plays ahead of the postseason against some of these opponents that are really top-notch opponents.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if the Chiefs match up against the Bengals, which would be at Arrowhead. If whatever happens in the first half, they come out in the second half and their first drive is just 13 personnel. It's like, all right, Lou, you adjusted. You've made some adjustments. Okay, we're adjusting
now
before
what?
you can. We're going 13. We're going to run the football, or we're going to hit you with the tight ends. And we've got Tony and McCole Hardman. They're the motion man. They're doing different things too. So we're going to do this where we'll go 6-7 yards down the field if you want to play that defense. We'll see if that's part of it, but they got to get there first to be able to do that. We know they'll be playing in the divisional round. Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert, is our guest. The AFC feels like it could be pretty chalky. That the 2's going to face the 3 in the divisional round. The 1's going to face the 4 or the 5, whether they be the Chargers or the Jags. And then if things go well for the Chiefs, 1 versus 2 or 3. But I went back and looked at the last 5 years of the playoffs, and there have been 10 games that have been played with the 6 versus the 3 seed. And then I kicked out the 5 years ago because it didn't work for my numbers. So the last 4 years, Cynthia, the 6 seed is 7-1 against the 3 seed. Anything to that? Random NFL, things that happen. It's 2 playoff teams that are playing, and things can happen in a game when you've got 2 teams that are good enough to make the playoffs that all have, double-digit wins essentially. What do you make of that? That the last 4 years, the 6 seed is 7-1 in the 6 versus 3 matchup.
Well, I mean, this year you've seen it very interestingly. Like, I think there's been some down, obviously some down divisions. If you're the 3 seed, you're not like overwhelming your division, right? You're typically not overwhelming your division. So, I mean, let's face it, this year is going to add into things like that too, because I mean, maybe not the 6 or whatever, but the Jags could very easily knock off the Chargers, and which doesn't even feel like it should. I feel like
it's the home team that won. It's the home team that won their division, but they're dogs by 2 points to the Chargers.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are the types of things where you're like, okay, well, like wild stuff here. But look, you also have to remember injuries and COVID and weird, like we've had a number of weird seasons here, but I do think that the AFC top to bottom tends to be a little bit more it feels this year like there's 3 teams, and you talked about it being chalky, but at the same time it's like those, I would say 5 of the teams are probably better than there's 2 teams in the NFC that really feel like they could win. There's maybe 5 in the AFC that could. So potentially it's that as well.
Are the Chargers the Bengals of this year? If there is a Cincinnati Bengals team, what the Bengals did last year, making their run, unexpected, would the Chargers be that team this year? If you said, okay, I've got to pick a team that does what the Bengals did last year, it'll be the Chargers. Maybe is there another team?
There's not.
Okay.
They're not my favorite. My problem with the Chargers, there's 2. One, their decision making is strange. So, I mean, obviously playing Mike Williams can that's the coach's choice and whatever. But just even their decision making and play calling in game has been odd at times. I think look, like I'd rather want to face the Chargers. It sounds crazy to say this. If I'm the Chiefs, I'd rather want to face the Chargers than the Jags because the Jags have some like new loopholes, some weird stuff that you haven't seen, and it feels as though the Chargers are giving you a lot of the same, and you kind of know what's coming for you. And let's hope everyone stays healthy, but the Chargers get that injury bug seemingly every year. So it's just wild. I don't think that they're poised to do it as well as some others. Like, I mean, I think the Bengals are probably the Bengals of, again, if I had to pick one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if there was a Bengals team of last year, it'd be the Bengals of this year. They face a Baltimore team that I've thought the last few weeks that, if Lamar Jackson was going to miss the regular season, it would be to make sure he was fully healthy for the first round of the playoffs once they wrapped up a playoff spot, not necessarily the division. But now we're hearing, from your colleague that it's going to be a, quote, uphill battle for him to play this weekend on Sunday night. Does Baltimore, they have a chance because it's the NFL, but do you give them much of a chance if Lamar Jackson does not play this weekend? And if he does, how much would that 6-3 upset alert be there for the Ravens?
I don't give him much of a chance to play. It feels like, if you're looking at just based on, say what you will about Vegas, they usually know who's playing and who's not, right? And it's like a 7-point swing, which would to me indicate not a Lamar Jackson, like a lot of faith he's playing from Vegas, and not to say that they know everything, but they're pretty good at this stuff. So when I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my goodness, I guess they could be an upset. It's hard to beat your division rival, 3 times, and they did split, it's a rubber match, whatever. It's hard to play them again and again, but I don't know. This one feels like the Ravens are just not dynamic enough. They've had one receiver catching a touchdown in the past several games. I don't even know the number, but Mark Andrews, okay, he'll be potentially back, but they helped him out. Him and J.K. Dobbins last week for health reasons, but he can't do it all himself. And sure, we've seen Isaiah Likely. It just seems like this defense is good. The defense and Roquan Smith has played well, but it doesn't feel like a team where the defense can carry everything without Lamar, or even with Lamar subpar.
Yeah, right. If it's 70% of Lamar, I do. How much do you think? Maybe not in this game, but let's say that Kappa misses the divisional round, because I think Zach Taylor said that it'd be pretty tough for Kappa to play this weekend after the injury. So that would be your right guard and your right tackle that are both gone for at least the wild card and maybe the division round game as well, against that Ravens defense that is able to put pressure on the quarterback. How much more difficult does the task become for Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense if Kappa misses a few weeks and they don't have that right side of the line?
Well, a lot more. The good news about Joe, if you're a Joe Burrow fan this year, is that he's gotten a lot better at not taking sacks, significantly better at not taking sacks, which is, it's like I said, it's good news if you are a Joe Burrow fan. The hard part with that, though, is that, it does become a lot harder to not take sacks or to, get away from pressure if it's coming at you faster. And that's what this forecast to do, right, is to make the pressure come at you much faster. And now it's not like this line, he's been sacked 41 times this season. It's not like they did focus a lot of energy, effort, and money on the line, but now you're gone, your money's been spent and they're not there. This is not an ideal situation. Yeah. Let's just put it that way for him.
Cynthia Frelund is our guest, NFL Network analytics expert. Last one, who over who in the Super Bowl? Who's your pick as we start the playoffs to win the whole thing in Phoenix?
What's funny is I think it's going to look a lot like Miami. I have the same participants and the same winner.
Interesting. Okay. I think people around here would take that. Chiefs over Niners.
Hopefully a little less dramatic fashion. Drama for the other people, but maybe not, in your neck of the woods, that drama. don't need that first half drama this time.
Yeah, no, it's save the comeback for a different game. You know, just get out to a 31-0 lead, and then hold on for a 31-20. Let's do that. Cynthia, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Enjoy the football. Looking forward to our conversation breaking down the matchup of whoever the Chiefs end up having in that divisional round. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Yes, thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week. Have a great week off.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. There is Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. Chiefs over 49ers, which then goes right in line with Field Yates on Monday, picked Chiefs over Niners in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will continue rolling. I do want to look a little bit at the 6 versus 3s that we've seen and what the recipe for an upset would be, and then specifically with the Chiefs' defense and what we've been seeing from them, whether that be the defensive line or the secondary, and even some of the Pro Football Focus grades that are out there, and maybe a difference from a year ago to this year as they get ready for the most important games of this season. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
You know, Cynthia mentioned it, that, hey, Vegas knows and they have an idea if somebody's playing or not playing, but that Bengals-Ravens line is still sitting at 7. Last week it was 11.5 at kickoff. So is that line just sort of sitting there waiting for more information on Lamar Jackson to go one way or another? Is that sort of hedging their own bet? We'll find out, but the NFL playoff picture, it is locked in. My go-to place for wild card round action is going to be DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and to kick off the road to Super Bowl 57, new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat bet each day of the wild card round this weekend. So on Saturday, you want to put a no-sweat bet on 49ers to win or Seahawks to cover or Chargers-Jags. That'd be an interesting one because a little more bang for your buck. Maybe Jags with the money line, or maybe parlay it, same game parlay. Use that free bet, that no-sweat bet. And if your team loses or if that bet loses, you'll get a free bet back up to $10. Action so good, why bet the NFL playoffs anywhere else? So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code 810WHB. New customers can bet just $5 on the NFL and get $200 in free bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code 810WHB.
Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700. 21 plus, physically present in Kansas. Bonus issued as free bets. One free bet issued based on amount of initial losing NFL bet up to $10. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
The Gambit, other than being a character from X-Men, this describes it as a device. Channing Tatum actually Tatum?
Wow.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Nine 913-912-4810 is the text line. Also, you can tweet the show. Tweet comes in and says, I honestly think the ref saw the snow globe play and was so flabbergasted by it that he threw a flag thinking, that's not allowed.
I literally think there's some truth to that. It was all disorienting, and then somebody was getting thrown down really hard.
But I'm using air quotes. That hold was, 12 yards away from Tony going into the end zone when he throws the flag. There is zero. Creed Humphrey could have picked the guy up and bear hugged him, and the guy, or could have just not even touched him. The guy was not going to make a play. Kind of feel like there should be that. And I know it's like, well, do you want the officials having more subjectivity there with these things? But a lot of the stuff is subjective as to what I see as a hold, you see as a hold, especially the roughing the passer stuff that we've talked about. The roughing is in the eye of the beholder. That it makes it less of a. Let me try to think. I think it helps the argument of the Chiefs being disrespectful and the whole thing is stupid. And look, they didn't even score anyway, right? Because they did score and it worked and it was a stupid flag, but whatever.
Creed Humphrey just spikes a grown man. It's a great rep.
Based on principle alone, that shouldn't be a flag. It's like, man, you know what? Sorry, dude.
The Chiefs really have gotten not even exaggerating, I think probably at least 3, 4, 5 flags this year for being good at football too violently. In a way that just looked like it must have caught, there had to be a penalty.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how could you do that to this man? I think Trey Smith's gotten hit for that. Obviously, Chris Jones has. That gets you to 3 already. I'm guessing there are
Creed
a few more.
Creed got a holding penalty when the play bounced outside, and it was so ticky-tacky.
Yeah.
It was he let go, and there wasn't anything that's what you're calling? Okay, whatever. So there's been some of those, right? I mean, we've seen those things happen.
Well, look,
that's across the NFL.
In fairness, Chris Jones has probably drawn 45 holding penalties this year. They call it every time.
And Mahomes is leading the league and getting roughing the passer calls.
Absolutely,
These
of
are
course.
things I'm not even going to look, but I assume they're facts.
They have to be. It would be unthinkable for them not to be facts.
Yes, unfathomable for that to take place. But 913-912-4810 is the text line. 913-912-4810. We talk some college basketball in the first hour. We'll talk college basketball with Myron Medcalf coming up at noon. The conversation around that we had with Cynthia Frelund there with, we talked about the conflicting defensive numbers of takeaways versus sacks. We've done that a little bit. And then the 13 personnel that the Chiefs have been coming out in more and more. Or just maybe utilizing it, more often the last couple of weeks, whether that's game plan or if that's let's put something on film. Or, there's also the possibility of let's get some reps in here with this. This is a game we're winning against the Raiders. We feel pretty good about this. Maybe it is also part of game plan, but let's get some reps in at 13 personnel. Here's a play that we're working on. Here's another play. We kind of want to put this on film to get the eye in the sky. Just to see, what it looks like when you got it on film yourself to sort of go through, and if you can move some pieces around here or there, and how much then, does that play a factor when they get back on the field again? Do they go 13 personnel very often? Was it specifically game plan? Is it just something else that the defense has to worry about? You're giving more reps to the opposition that they have to think about if the Chiefs come out in 13 personnel. And the other thing that I wonder, Josh, is how often they're throwing the ball out of 13 personnel. If that is 13 personnel, but wink, wink, we throw out of this. Right. So make sure you stay in your nickel and dime package and dare us to run, Lou Anarumo, because we're going to actually run this time, and we're going to be in our 13 personnel. We're not going to do the RPOs. Blake Bell's going to be in there. We're going to run some power if you want to drop that 8th guy into coverage and only have 3 guys at the defensive line we're going to do that, and we're going to see if you want to adjust to us instead of you adjusting and us not adjusting back.
So I love a good data visualization, which is especially great on the radio because everybody can see them. But I want to show you this here from Sam Hoppin on Twitter. I had a bunch of great data viz go up today. And see on this one here, the green you're looking at in this one, I'm going to explain it for the audience as well. But this is the 13 personnel.
Okay.
So you can see where the Chiefs experimented with it for large chunks. Chunks early in the year, and then they stopped, and it came back a little bit. Now they've been using it a little more consistently. More consistently than, I think, literally any other playoff team. The Jags and Seahawks had a couple of weeks where they used it a bunch. But then also from Sam Hoppin, on the just usual X and Y axis, he charted out how teams perform against light and heavy boxes. And I was a little bit surprised by some of the results on this one just because of how the narratives around it usually go. This is not specific to the 13 personnel, but it's the tendencies of the Chiefs against heavy boxes, which you imagine they're trying to bait with 13 personnel, right?
Or it could be short yardage situation.
True, right. So if you're bringing out 3 tight ends, you're expecting more beef from the defense because they get the chance to match and all that. So performing against heavy boxes, the Chiefs are over here on the far right, which is that they're really good at passing, and they should pass the ball a lot. And the Chiefs do that in terms of throwing the ball against heavy boxes. That's the good news. It's also relatively good news that against light boxes, they are straight up the middle in terms of light box EPA per rush. They're relatively high up, and what this means is essentially when they run the ball against light boxes, they're performing top 5-ish in the league. But they don't really tend one way or the other on if they should run more or less, or if they're good at it, or they are simply good at it, and then kind of right on that axis of how often they are actually handing the ball off. I expected that to perform worse because it feels like the Chiefs throw even against light boxes more often than you might like. What the visualization shows out is that they do it at an okay clip, but they do it well when they do run the ball. So ultimately, I think the 13 personnel conversation ends up being about another way they can beat you because it's also another way the defense has to adjust. The thing that the Chiefs can do with the specific tight ends they have, I wish Jody Fortson was still in the mix, but with Blake Bell being back, it's going to work out just fine.
14 personnel.
Yeah, Jody 14 personnel.
Jody
14 season?
Fortsoning.
Yeah, it's probably good that they're only 3 right now. But in the 13, what you can do is you can run the ball into potentially heavy boxes because you've got 3 tight ends out there and you assume defenses are going to adjust. Or if defenses don't adjust to that, they stay in their nickel packages. Even if they just stay light, even if they have kind of a Dan Sorensen hybrid backer in there, it would be good for everybody. But even if you have a hybrid there and you're showing your hand as a defense to what you are asking the Chiefs to do, basically, which is we'd rather you just go ahead and throw the ball because we're preparing for that.
Or we're daring you to throw. We don't think you're going to run the ball here. And
either way, I think the Chiefs end up having a personnel and a schematic advantage when they're in 13 because they can run if you don't want them to run, and they can throw if they don't want you to throw. So the Chiefs can always hold the pin last and make the choice that the defense doesn't want them to make if they're on top of it in that moment. A lot of game planning going into it, of course, but in the moment, I just think it's a fascinating wrinkle in this offense.
And I wonder, like, when they have everybody healthy, who's the wide receiver there? Because we saw Justin Watson a number of times.
And I think he's their favorite blocking receiver.
Right, so maybe that's part of the entire cloak and dagger of the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
That, Watson's our best blocking wide receiver. Oh, hey, we hit you over the top with Justin Watson.
And even if Juju is as good a blocker, people talk about his physicality all the time, he doesn't have the final gear that Justin Watson has if it is 13 personnel shot play.
Yeah, right.
Because Watson can actually, that's the role that Justin Watson should be in my book. I'm happy to let him be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Tony or Hardman if he's out there, healthy, and they go 3 tight ends and 1 wide receiver, because then Kelsey can catch. You know what they can do, different things with Hardman as a motion man if they do that in 13, which is what they did on that shot play to Justin Watson. He came in motion, wheel route around the outside, and Mahomes, laid it in the breadbasket. But you've got guys that are obviously good at, catching the ball. Blake Bell is in there as somebody that, hey, if you're going to run the ball, you've got an extra guy that, can do that really well. But also with Jerick McKinnon in the game, too.
Yep.
If you're in 13 personnel with Jerick McKinnon, you have a wide receiver, a running back, and 2 tight ends that are there that can all catch the ball against what you're hoping is a defense that's in a base 4-3 personnel that you've got 3 linebackers out there, and who's guarding Kelsey, who's guarding McKinnon, who's guarding Noah Gray, who's guarding the wide receiver, where are the mismatches in that? Maybe to just simply get some reps, put it on film, may not see it very often in the postseason. Or maybe there's a specific opponent that the Chiefs are getting ready for, that they are practicing this in a game to get the continuity down, the chemistry down of these plays, this personnel with Blake Bell back, that 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks from this weekend, we'll see it, and it might be the difference in a game of like, well, you know what? We said the running game, the Chiefs are able to run it now. Good luck stopping them. Well, I mean, we haven't seen that really all that much, except for, the second half against the Chargers when they came out and it was like, just run the ball. Run the ball all the way down the field in the second half, which is what they did. If that's something that this year, like, okay, yeah, we can do it, and we will, and we've shown you that we're passing a lot out of 13. Well, now, you know what? Bengals, Bills, whatever, stay in your nickel, dime package, and we're going to stay with the run, and we're going to be more disciplined in our approach with this and maybe fight against our own tendencies or our own habits that we just have to go, and addiction. I gotta pass. It's been like 4 plays since I just a little taste. Just a little taste. Can we do the screen? A little taste of a pass. Come on, come on, baby. I just need one little pass here. Come on, one time.
This isn't a very funny impression of me, Jason.
Sorry.
But I feel it.
Yeah, well, you feel heard or you're triggered.
I feel attacked.
Yeah, as you should. That's who I was talking about.
I'm going to go out in the hall and just throw the ball a couple of times.
You should. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back right after this hour. We'll talk some college basketball. Myron Medcalf, college basketball hoops insider, coming up at noon. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You're in the zone with Jason Anderson
All right, welcome back. Anderson in the Zone. It's ESPN. It's Sports Radio 810 WHB.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I wrap things up here in the 11 o'clock hour on this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll talk with Myron Medcalf, our college hoops insider from ESPN, coming up next. Get his thoughts on the Big 12, KU, K-State, Mizzou, coaches and turning around programs, what we've seen locally, and then recent history as to the expectations, how much they have raised for programs to say, now, I need you to do it right now. It doesn't need to be 2-3 years down the road and say, oh, you're going to build this thing. It's going to be a slow burn, just stacking brick by brick by brick. It's like, nah, build a house now. Because it's been done before, so it's proven that at different levels that you can do that. Who's the next Texas coach? I know some people in the SEC that wear blue and live in Lexington would like their coach to be the Texas coach. An odd turn of events.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson.
He's a good guy to hang out with. He's a good guy to work with. He's a good guy to confide in. He's got the characteristics of what you would hope that your best friend or a brother would have. And he's tough.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Josh Brisco, Beards, heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll hang out with Mick Shaffer coming up an hour from now. Sad fan, shot clock reviews, all that still to come. Talking some college basketball now with our college basketball insider from ESPN. It is Myron Medcalf joining us here in the zone. Myron, what is up, man? How are you, sir?
Good, man. Can't complain. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. I want to talk, obviously, some college basketball with you, but I want to start with the game on Monday night in college football and combine the two sports a little bit. That until they expand the playoffs, does TCU feel like the closest we have to a quote unquote Cinderella college basketball team that wins some games, gets deep into the postseason, and then for this one it was just simply winning the semifinal game and then playing a Georgia team that I'm not sure another team in America on that night would have won against Georgia, that gets in that game and a stud team across from them, and that team ends up winning. Was it as close as we've seen in college football of like a Cinderella run in college basketball?
Yeah, maybe the closest in college football just because of the limitations.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to expand Cinderella. We've already done that too much. It feels like kind of we give that to everybody. I mean, that's still a Power 5 team that beat the Big Ten champion to get there. Like, I'd rather reserve Cinderella for the Coastal Carolinas of the world if they find a way to make it in the expanded field. But I just think Georgia's just that good. I mean, TCU played this potential, beat Michigan, but Georgia's a dynasty. I mean, a lot of those guys are coming back. And I think we might look at this as the beginning of sort of what Alabama did, from like 2010 to 2020. You could see Georgia doing that in the next decade, I think.
Visiting with Myron Medcalf, and we'll see what this run's going to be for Kirby Smart and Georgia. The run for the Big 12, Oklahoma and Texas are going to be out in a couple of years, but this Big 12 team or conference this year. We've talked about it. There's been some, years where the Big 12's been good and solid, but some years there's been like a team at the bottom or two that you're like, all right, there's a win there. There's maybe a little bit of a breather. It doesn't have that this year. How good is this Big 12 conference this year? I'm assuming, you look at it as being the best conference in basketball, but looking back recently, how tough and night in, night out of these battles is this Big 12 season going to be?
I mean, typically, obviously, it's pound for pound. I think been the king in recent years, but I don't know. Are they going to make a run at every team getting in? I mean, it's not. It's not crazy. Like, I don't think there's a bad game. I do a lot of Big Ten sideline reporting, so I talked to a lot of those guys about no easy games, and I think that's real when it comes to the Big Ten. In the Big 12, you're playing all teams that can beat anybody. Like, I don't think Kansas, which is the best team in the league, can play anybody and just you assume they're just going to skate by them, right? I mean, Oklahoma had it all there, and then, that Fieldhouse does what it does. But I think it's one of those leagues where every night I'll say, no matter who you're playing, there's a real threat. And I think that's what makes, this Big 12 so tough. I don't think there's a team as good as last year's Kansas team in it, but I think there's more teams closer together from 3 to 8 in this league.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fascinating.
That makes sense.
No, absolutely. I mean, the Big 12 football season, felt like that this year. That all of a sudden Kansas is playing the way that they're playing in football, and it's like, all right, there is no. There's no bye week in the Big 12 when you're actually playing an opponent. And in years past, we've seen like a team or two in Big 12 basketball where it's like, all right, you got this team at home, you're good. That team on Saturday, though, kind of gearing up for that one, but you should be fine on this Tuesday, Wednesday night, whatever it might be in the Big 12. But there's certainly none of that, and maybe that's what makes the 8-0 combined start for KU and K-State all the more impressive. In that this Big 12 this year and wins on the road, overtime wins, close wins, KU comeback wins, that both these teams have found ways to win. I want to talk K-State here in a little bit, but I want to start with KU in that Bill Self talked about last night and winning some of these close games. And it's like, we're playing with fire, but also, these guys just they expect to win here, and that's part of it. And I talked about earlier in the show, Myron, that it kind of feels like it builds on itself, that KU wins these close games, which then the next time they get in the close games, they've played in them and won them before. They're not panicking. They make the plays down the stretch. They're confident enough to do that. And then they win more close games. It just feels like that's what Kansas does, and that's whether it's Allen Fieldhouse or down in Lubbock or wherever, that they might be winning some close games. But if there's one team that you're saying, this team's going to win more than their fair share of the close games, it would be the Jayhawks.
Yeah, I mean, you got a couple of dudes who were in that locker room when they're down double digits in the national title game. So, I mean, what's being down against Oklahoma at home? So I think the best quality that this KU team has, to your point, they're not afraid of anybody, and they're not afraid of any situation. What could you tell Jalen Wilson and Dwan Harris right now about a deficit they couldn't overcome?
Yeah.
What could you tell Bill Self right now? So in a landscape where I don't think we have a great team in college basketball, I don't think we have a team where you go, oh, man, we're going to be talking about this team a decade from now. But I think you got a bunch of good teams, and they're all pretty close together. But I think Kansas does have an edge against a lot of teams, not just because of the talent, but because of the reality that, you can't scare those dudes. What are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them they can't come out and beat Oklahoma at home when they're down late? You're going to tell them they can't finish at Texas Tech? They can't, play some of the best teams they've had to defeat already this year? No, they're not worried about that because they've been at the highest level. Their leaders have been at the highest level, and all those guys are feeding off that.
Yeah, and the younger guys coming in, like Grady Dick shouldn't. You talk about a true freshman. He's been as good as anybody in the country this year. But even last night, he's like 1 of 8 in the game. But late in the game, he's making some plays elsewhere, hitting free throws or doing some of those things. It's like if you have a freshman that would be struggling in a game that might be relied upon in a game in which you're down 10 points with 5 minutes to go. Is that guy still going to be making plays late when it's not just I need to shoot, I need to score, this is what I do, that all right, I'm going to box out and get a rebound. All right, here's a defensive rebound. Here's an offensive rebound to keep the play alive. All right, knock down both free throws. Here's what I'm expected to do outside of just scoring. And I think that's, part of the expectations that when you walk in the locker room, and we talk about it from the Chiefs standpoint, that Mahomes and Andy Reid and the guys talk about the expectations when you show up of what you're expected to do day in and day out and what the result is expected to be, which is wins. That I think is different when you show up to, even Jerome Tang in K-State now, what he's trying to build, Dennis Gates, what he's trying to build at Mizzou, whatever's going on at Kentucky right now. But it feels different when you show up at Kansas and there's Bill Self and the expectations that have been set year after year after year after year, that you just sort of, whether you step in and feel like you take over that, or that that's what you have to be, and that's why you would go to a place like that.
Well, yeah, and that, you wouldn't come there if you weren't ready for that, I think. So I think that part becomes clear as well. Guys go there because they know that, this is one of the teams in college basketball. This legacy is what it is. And it's been hard for a lot of teams to sustain that level of achievement. Look at what Kentucky's dealing with right now. Look at what some of these other teams have struggled with in recent years. But Kansas is, kind of steadied the ship in a way that a lot of teams haven't, which is why I always tell people Bill Self's greatest achievement, and the greatest achievement that I've covered, is still the run of Big 12 titles.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's far more difficult than winning national championships and getting to the Final Four. Now, Bill Self getting that second national championship, I'm sure that made him feel pretty good about his legacy. But at the end of the day, that magical run of Big 12 championships is the greatest thing I've seen in modern college basketball, and it speaks to a consistency that I think is just very hard to duplicate.
Visiting with Myron Medcalf from ESPN, our College Hoops Insider. I'm hoping that KU and K-State both win this weekend, so it would set up 16-1 versus 16-1, 5-0 in the conference versus 5-0 in the conference, two top 10 teams, both on 10-game winning streaks, that KU would be heading to Manhattan to face off against K-State in Bramlage. And what Jerome Tang has done has been just downright incredible for this K-State team. They've got players, but just because you have players doesn't mean you're going to get them to play collectively as a group and guys to step up and play confidently and hit big shots when big shots are required. What have you seen now, 16 games in? And last night, K-State getting win number 15, which was significant to the coaching staff and K-State because they won 14 games all of last year. What Jerome Tang has done in finally his opportunity to run his own program.
Yeah, I talked to Jerome a lot, this summer about why Kansas State. He was just really confident that they could win there. I mean, I think a lot of people see Manhattan, Kansas in that job, and they go, you're always going to be in the Kansas shadow. You're never going to get the top kids because they're going to pick Kansas, and then they have all these other Big 12 schools as well. And I think he just felt like, especially in this climate, after what he'd achieved, he'd be able to build relationships with recruits, transfers, and find a way to win. And I think, Keontae Johnson being such a big part of what he's been able to do. And I think, to me, that's the new era of college basketball. Like, without the transfer portal, does Jerome Tang build up, what he has? Like, is he able to do that? Or is it going to take a lot longer? Whereas with the transfer portal, I just think he's a guy who, is going to be able to go every year, grab more players, and be competitive. And I think that's the new age in college basketball. Kansas will get who they want. Those schools will get who they want. But everybody else is kind of going to be in this just add water kind of situation, try to get the big recruit, the big transfer to change your team, and he's done that.
Yeah, but whether it be JUCO guy or obviously Keontae was a very big lift for this team. And I think also, a little comparison between Mizzou and K-State in that both the coaches were able to convince a pretty significant player to stay in a new coaching staff. Marquise Noel staying is, a very big deal. I mean, he's averaging 28 and 10 assists in the 4 Big 12 games they've played so far. And Kobe Brown has been that good for Mizzou. So it's not only bringing guys in, but you take over a program. And in today's day and age, when you can transfer immediately, if you've got a coach that's been fired and a new coach coming in, do you want to spend that year or two in what could be a rebuild, or are you buying into the new guy? And Jerome Tang and Dennis Gates got a couple significant players to buy in, and two of the biggest reasons why we're talking about teams that have a combined 18 wins through the first part of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Dennis Gates about Kobe and just kind of that relationship, and that was huge. And obviously Jerome Tang did the same thing. That's going to be a big part of it going forward too, if you have a coach you believe in. But I think what you can sell those guys too is, hey, listen, I can get you some help, and not help in the form of an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old who's going to need 6 months to even be physically ready to play. I can get you a 22-year-old. I can get you a 23-year-old who's played 3-4 years of college basketball. And I think that's going to be the appeal as well, that these guys can do a lot like what LeBron did with that Miami team. And these guys can reach out to their buddies and their friends and say, hey, man, why don't you come play a year with me? Why don't we try to chase something together? And that's a big factor as well, that it's not just saying, hey, stay, I'm a better coach, I'm going to change the culture. It's like, nah, man, I got 2 dudes coming who are going to take the burden off your shoulders, and we have a chance to be good right away. That's the appeal now with coaching transitions that you just didn't have before the immediate eligibility clause went into play.
Myron Medcalf saying that if K-State wins the Big 12 this year, it is not a real championship because they are just
it's 100% real.
Just joking with you.
It's real.
It's the LeBron haters.
Everything's real.
Miami doesn't count. Win a real championship.
Yeah.
You'd be created a dream team. So, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, like Magic and Kareem weren't a dream team, right?
But he didn't have to go and recruit him. He didn't have to do that. Myron Medcalf is our guest from ESPN, our College Hoops Insider. Is that maybe the lesson that we're learning about college basketball now is how quickly the turnaround can happen, and maybe it translates to then or trickles down into fans and how quickly the expected turnaround can be? Because, again, K-State won 14 games last year. They're already 15-1. Mizzou won 12 games last year. They're 13-2. Iowa State won 2 games a couple of years ago, and then they go to the Sweet 16 last year. And look what they're doing now in Big 12 play. I mean, just trying to think off the top of my head, like Bama and Arkansas are teams that quickly, with new coaches, have turned things around. And that was even really before the whole, transfer immediately. Is that kind of the lesson now that we're seeing is, the expectations have been heightened a little bit that, hey, you see these other coaches doing it. Well, there's no longer sort of a slow burn brick by brick that if you're taking over a program, you might be expected to have some success pretty quickly out of the gates. No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the interview process. I mean, let's be honest. Dennis Gates, his first conversation wasn't with Kobe Brown. It was, who's coming from Cleveland State, I'm sure Jerome Tang's first conversation was, anybody want to follow me from Baylor? So I think that's a factor as well. What do you like about Grady Dick? And then I'll answer the question.
Oh, I mean, what I like about Grady Dick is that in a game last night, when he's not scoring, he's still making plays, and he's not afraid of the moment.
Yeah.
And he kind of already, as a freshman, has that Christian Brown bleep you to him in a game that
that dude, he got some arrogance. That dude will show up to the playground talking trash.
Yeah, he'll show up and like Billy Hoyle, give him the chump. Okay, all right, I'll be the chump.
Yeah. I bring him up because I asked Bill Self at Big 12 Media Day, I said, is the era of the developmental freshman over? If you got a chance to get a guy, but he's a year away, maybe longer, versus there's a transfer who's ready to play now. Who are you going after? And Bill said that transfer. And a lot of coaches have told me that. So I think that the thing now is these mid-majors are becoming the G League for Power 5 schools. And now, if you're the Dennis Gates, the Jerome Tangs of the world, you still need to recruit. You're going to recruit. But guess what? There's 2 22-year-olds playing at Liberty or somewhere who are ready to play at this level. And now, instead of developing freshmen and having to build around those guys, you're older automatically. So I think the change now is how quickly you can get older. And the reality is, getting the 5-star recruit helps you win the support of fans. Getting older helps you keep your job. And that's the bottom line when it comes to college basketball coaches. You ain't got to be sexy. You can be Virginia and win a championship and coach forever if you're Tony Bennett. Or you can fall into the trap that some guys have fallen into where they've had one good recruiting class and they couldn't sustain it and they lost their job. So I think a lot of coaches and a lot of teams are going to say, you know what? Yeah, I'll take that one kid who's like Grady Dick who can play right away. I'm not saying they're a bunch of Grady Dicks, but the kid who's ready to step in, I'll take him. Then go get me those 2 kids from out at that mid-major on the East Coast who've been dreaming their whole lives of playing at a K-State or playing at a Mizzou. It was their dream coming out of high school, and now they get the opportunity. That's what's changed in college basketball.
I mean, Desi Sills, Arkansas State's hit big shots, against Texas, hitting big shots in the Big 12, and Demoy Hodge, Gomillion, and DeGray, and just Noah Carter, just different players for this, and Sean East. I mean, Missouri's got a lot of them that are like, okay, get some guys in there that have played at a pretty high level for a lower level school, and that translates now if you're older and you've got that experience. It is interesting because, last year there weren't any 5-star recruits for KU in their starting lineup, and they won a national championship. And so now, I mean, is the 5-star, you've got that guy, the NBA top 5, top 10 pick, surefire guy that is out there on the floor as a true freshman, the ultimate difference maker, or guys that you bring in that are like, no, this guy's pretty damn good, and he's a senior. He was a nice recruit out of high school, kind of four-star, number 70, number 80 in the nation, but now he's a senior, like Ochai and Christian Brown, guys that were in the 100s that all of a sudden, a number of years later, they're lottery picks and first-round draft picks, and I look around and I just wonder, how much that's the future of what we're going to see in college basketball, of some of these teams like that, and maybe not even the transfer, if you can keep your guys to stay. I mean, Matt Painter in Purdue, like, where's the 5-star kid running around on the court for that team that's got one loss on the season?
Yeah, I mean, but only the Kansases of the world are going to be able to keep those kids, right?
Yeah,
the challenge is, if you got 5 of those guys, now 2 of them are going to another school in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a place like Kansas, you're competing for Final Fours, and you got the history, and you have all the facilities, you're playing with Bill Self, But I think it's actually going to be harder for teams to keep those guys. Now, they can keep a couple of them. Like, they're going to be able to keep their top 2 scorers. But that, like, number 3 and 4 dude, that's going to be the challenge. That's going to be the issue.
Yeah. I mean, he got Marquise Noel to stay. Nigel Pack did not. He headed down to Miami.
Nigel Pack got a bag.
He got a bag.
Nigel Pack got $800,000 to make a life decision.
Yep, absolutely, and good for him.
And that's going to happen more too.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I mean, Power 5 to Power 5, or Power 6 to Power 6, or just major college basketball, whatever way we want to, verbalize it, or whatever terminology there with that. So, Myron Medcalf is our guest from ESPN, our College Hoops Insider. Who's the next Texas coach? Who's out there that'll take over Texas, that they'll go and look at or talk to, or would be? I mean, a lot of people probably be interested, but that would fit from the interest in who Texas wants.
That's a really good question. I was down there when this all went down. They got a beautiful arena. They have a fan base that really wants to care and buy in. I mean, I could say 5-6 years ago that was the worst Power 5 environment I've ever been in. They hired a consultant at some point, a noise consultant. Did you know that? They hired this woman who, like, would go to NBA arenas to help them kind of make it pop. And Texas hired her because they were like, our atmosphere is boring, it's not cool. And she, like, brought in a DJ and all these other things. So, like, I mean, that's how bad it was. I was there at the new arena a couple weeks back, and obviously this is when Beard had been suspended, but they got so much there, man. Like, there's so many opportunities to elevate that program in the NIL era. Of course, they can compete. They got a lot of people willing to spend money on the program. But you had the home run hiring Chris Beard. So now do you go to maybe the old vet who's just there to coach ball and doesn't really have a life beyond that, which is why Cal, to me, and there are already reports that there's interest, makes the most sense in that Cal is having a tough time in Kentucky. Everyone's talking about the top-ranked recruiting class, which is cool, but name the one-and-done classes who've won national championships. There are 2 of them, people.
12 and 15.
Okay, 2012 Kentucky with Anthony Davis, a future All-Star and Hall of Famer. 2015 Duke, that had an incredible run but didn't have to play that 38-1 Kentucky team. So it ain't like getting a top recruiting class means you're going on a run. So that feels like the perfect landing place for a Cal. At the same time, if I'm Texas, my first call is to Nate Oates. And because I think you got to have somebody with that energy to really go after this new climate in college basketball. I would love Kelvin Sampson to get the job. Obviously he's earned it, but he's got a lot of Houston too. Scott Drew, I've heard. Scott Drew can coach at Baylor forever. Yeah. So we'll see, but those are the names to me that I think will be out there this year.
And you've heard there is interest from Cal to head to Texas, because that thing is turning into a dumpster fire with a guy getting kicked out of the arena last night for holding a sign that says, "Please go to Texas," on a night in which they lost to a below 500 team, South Carolina, at home.
Yeah. Now, the interest I'm saying from Texas. I don't know about Cal.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
The interest from
I see.
the interest
Okay.
from Texas. But I mean, you got to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a team that fired Rick Barnes, and I actually did a piece on Rick Barnes shortly before he was fired, and hung out with him down there. You fire Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes goes to Tennessee and has a great run, still having a great run. You get Shaka Smart, who's like the prince of the top young coaches. He gets there, can't really get over the hump, get into the second weekend. You get Chris Beard, who has it all, and he's got off the field things that you can't forgive. He's gone. You got to get it right here, or you're really going to get left behind if you're Texas.
Nate Oates is a good one. I was wanting Mizzou to hire Nate Oates when he went down to Alabama because I thought he's a really good coach and what he did at Buffalo. I'm good with Dennis Gates now and what he's doing, but Nate Oates, Musselman, those guys, and I wonder if we play the dominoes, and then we'll let you go, but play the dominoes. Let's say, Calipari goes to Texas now, one of the best jobs and programs in America becomes open. Who gets that job? Musselman, Oates, I mean, there have been names that have been talked about there, like Jay Wright and Chris Beard, and neither of those guys are in college basketball right now.
Jay Wright's going to make so much money on TV,
mm-hmm.
and he could get that job. Does he want it? I doubt it. I doubt Jay Wright wants to, get a job right away. It seems like he wants to take some time. Get right to the NBA makes more sense. I think Nate Oates is going to be connected to anything.
Yeah.
Whether it's Texas, Kentucky opening up, he's going to be, I think, very, very high on that list. Matt Painter's a guy that people aren't talking about as much. I've talked to Matt Painter. Matt Painter doesn't want to be a lifer. He's not a guy who wants to stay in this forever. He's made a ton of money. If they don't win it this year with Zach Edey and all the talent they have in a landscape that feels like there's not a remarkable team, does Matt Painter want to move on? I don't know, but that's a guy who I would gauge his interest to.
Interesting. Myron Medcalf, our college hoops insider from ESPN. Myron, you're the man. Very much appreciate the time, sir. Look forward to the conversations this year. Enjoy the basketball and the football, and hopefully next Wednesday we're talking about two undefeated teams that played the night before in Bramlage with KU and K-State.
Sounds good, man.
All right, there's Myron Medcalf. Great stuff. Our college hoops insider with Myron from ESPN, talking some college basketball with him, and it is getting hot and heavy now. And I like the Texas job. I mean, I don't think Texas is one of the better programs, but I think Texas is one of the better jobs in college basketball because, as you talked about, now the arena, the atmosphere, you've got the fans, and it's an interesting way of describing it, that want to care. So Texas fans want to care. You've got all the money in the world. You can compete in the NIL. The facilities are fantastic. You've got a recruiting base, whether that matters in college basketball or not, because it's more national recruiting rather than, backyard and college football recruiting-wise. And you got a fan base that ultimately, if you have some success, you can coach there a long time even without having a national championship. Like Rick Barnes coached there for a long time, went to a Final Four with TJ Ford, but ultimately they move on from him. But there's a lot of times where it's like, what's this team doing in the tournament? Oh, they did that. Cool. Hey, who's the starting quarterback in spring football? Whether a coach wants that, do you want to be at a quote-unquote football school? You want to be at a basketball school? That's why I think it's one of the better jobs out there. They're going to pay you a lot of money. You can compete with the NIL. You got facilities, you got recruiting, and it is not a fishbowl that everything you do or say is scrutinized and analyzed, and every loss feels like it's 20, and you age like the president, and it's a pressure cooker that you can go there, and certainly there'll be some pressure, but not like if you were to take over a Kentucky, a Kansas, a Duke, North Carolina. What those schools will be looking and watching and specifically paying attention to what you do on the basketball court and how quickly you have success, sustained success, and high-end success with that program. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
You know what makes me nervous about today's show?
Where do we begin?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Nine 912-4810. Text says,
Sorry,
Beards.
Jason, I'm beeping.
Beep. Check that beep.
We're good.
He's beeping.
God, so close that just
turn him off.
a break.
Turn him off and turn him back on. Unplug it. Plug him back in. Text says, I was hoping you would respond when Myron Medcalf asked you what do you like about, or excuse me, I was hoping you would respond with his name when Myron asked what you liked about Grady Dick. I figured I would keep it serious in that, we try to stay as serious
Grady's
as possible.
a nice name.
Grady is a good name.
You
could say opponents, he would grade on them. Kind of grade. He's kind of a Grady last name on the court sometimes. Christian Brown certainly had some Grady Dick in his game on the court.
I did notice that Myron, a professional analyst and broadcaster and reporter and all of that. I did notice he went first name, last name, I believe, every time when talking about Grady Dick. I always just like to see how people approach that particular challenge, how to approach the Grady of it all.
What challenge?
Just the challenge of, whenever there's an iconic player, really coming into the league and you have to figure out how you're going to refer to him.
Like if you were to say,
it can be hard.
Yeah, Dick penetrates and finishes at the rim. Would you need to then go Grady Dick?
Yes.
Okay. Because in football, it's probably less, but in basketball, there's a lot of that, that comes up. So, yeah, you want to be more serious about it. And, the broadcasters are pretty serious about it. Good for them.
Unfunny people.
We do the same thing. You think he's heard this his whole life, or is this something new for him to experience?
In that particular instance, I might just say number 4 penetrates, drives, and finishes at the rim.
Or just Grady Dick with the layup.
That's what
in Major League, take over. I'm in the bag, and there's the line drive to left center and a diving play, fly ball. Caught.
See that right there.
Grady Dick, bucket. 2 points.
2 points for the Kansas Jayhawks men's basketball team.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of things to like about that player. Good night. If you're a Kansas fan, there's certainly a lot more to like. If you're not a Kansas fan, there's a lot to like in terms of his game. If you take the jersey off and just make it a generic jersey.
Why are you trying to tear Grady Dick's jersey off, Jason?
I'm just saying, put it in a sponsored commercial where you can't have any logos or anything, like the State Farm where it's practice jersey Patrick Mahomes, and everything's just red helmets and red jersey and red shorts, and there's no logos anywhere. Just put that with Grady Dick, just like white jersey, white shorts, blue jersey, blue shorts, whatever it is, and it's like, hey, this guy's a pretty good player. You know who he is, but it's like, oh, he's playing for generic, made-up team on old basketball game.
He's a creative player at that point,
That's right.
It's a great creative player, great superstar to build your franchise around.
Well, I would say that.
What would you say?
I would say that he does play like you were to go in and create a player. You're like, oh, let's get this freshman. Oh, create a player.
Yeah.
He plays that way as a true
let's max
freshman.
out his outside shooting and the dog bar. Let's go ahead and just max those out and see what happens. That is the Christian Brown build. Who every time I want to say Braun so bad because
a lot of people.
It's that one. It's surprising that of the two sort of similar players that KU's had in this role the last couple of years, the last name that's given me more trouble is Brown.
Mm-hmm. Text from earlier says, so when do you start talking about the coaches leaving like Lance?
I think KU fans should get a clear pass to make all the Jerome Tang to Texas jokes they could possibly make. I think Lance Leipold earned that for them.
Here's the thing. K-State wins the next 2 games at TCU, home against KU.
Leave then.
On Wednesday, I'm asking Myron, is Jerome Tang the next coach at Texas or Kentucky, depending on if Cal
good point.
goes to the Longhorns?
Yeah.
Does Jerome Tang get hired before the season's over? Does he go after the when? Not if. When does Jerome Tang take over at Texas or Kentucky?
And that would obviously be really unfortunate for K-State, but I think Dennis Gates could step in and do a really good job right away in Manhattan. And all of a sudden, I mean, we're chugging along again.
That's right. That's absolutely right. You know,
I just had to make sure Mizzou also got sideswiped there because that's really been the theme of all the coaches in the area lately.
Keeps just heading west. Cleveland, Columbia,
right.
Manhattan.
Right. Yep. Eventually, he's coaching in the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm. Who would Missouri then go and get? Probably somebody that's
Shaka Smart.
Calipari.
He's at Texas already. That's how.
Well, no, Jerome Tang's going to Texas.
Rick Pitino.
Rick Pitino's going to Kentucky.
Done.
Cal's going to Mizzou.
Look, I'll take Dennis Gates right now, but if Gates were to leave at the end of this year for the K-State job in this clearly obvious scenario that has a really decent chance of happening.
Very likely all of this happens, yeah.
Then, yeah, I would definitely call Rick Pitino. Damn right. Rick Pitino would be on.
Got to make sure you only
speed dial.
See, like the reason Rick Pitino could never be like the Kansas coach is that whenever you're playing the those like 11 o'clock tip games at Allen Fieldhouse and the lights coming through the windows up there, he'd burn right up. You cannot risk that with Rick Pitino.
Not until March. Rick Pitino starts the season with very good complexion.
Interesting.
Looks healthy.
So the life just fades from him.
And in March, he's white as a ghost, and his face, you can see all the bones in his face.
So he's just not feeding during the season.
That's exactly right.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly right, yes.
All right.
And so in March is when it's like, is he okay? What's wrong? I mean, his hair is jet black, but everything else seems to look like it has really gone downhill since this season started. From the beginning, he's aged like a president in 4 months. How did that happen? Because honestly, I don't know that he sleeps much. To be completely honest with you, I don't know that he sleeps much.
Really, I think Pitino is the only guy one of the only guys in a head job in college sports. So I don't think you can say ages like a president because he looks great for the fact that he's 450 years old.
Well, that's true. And that's why, I didn't understand when it was like, hey, I didn't know of all the parties that were going on in the dorm room. And it's like, Rick, it was at night.
Yeah, you got to know.
That's usually when you are doing most of your work.
That's exactly right. That was for me when that argument fell apart. If they were having these crazy parties with all of these questionable individuals at noon, I'd be like, look, there was no way he would know about that. He's upside down in a rafter somewhere. He's not paying attention to the parties going on campus. It's 12:30 p.m.
Yeah, stay out of this practice facility. Stay out of this practice gym.
Exactly.
Do not open the doors to that practice gym. It's why there are no windows or anything. Okay,
That's right.
That practice gym, so do not enter. When the doors open at 9:30, depending on what time of the year, 6 o'clock during the winter time, then it's all good. I am one of the naive people that actually believes that stuff was done behind his back that he didn't know, but, Call me naive. Tex says, there are hookers in Columbia, so. Tex says, who's going to be the first to dump the gobs of money on Jay Wright? That's the thing, like...
the TV channels, right? I mean, they can just keep dumping... Sean McVay might leave and just go work for Amazon and get a raise.
Oh, yeah, Sean McVay's done.
Does Jay Wright does he seem like he wants this hustle again?
I don't know that he's going to take the Rams job. I would say no. Sean McVay's gone. It's not going to be Jay Wright. I would wonder if Jay Wright's next coaching job is NBA rather than college. He's turned down the NBA before, reportedly. And he's turned down other big-name programs to stay at Villanova, but clearly got to a point to where it was like, I just kind of want to step away for a couple of years, recharge the batteries. I've won a couple national titles at this point in my career, okay? I'm pretty good. I'll go wear a suit the way that not many people can wear a suit on national TV, get some money there, and then figure out what my next steps are.
You probably will have a good guess for this, but I'm guessing most people wouldn't. Do you know how old Jay Wright is?
Like 44?
I think this is the Suits.
He's like 67?
He's 61 years old.
Like I said, 61.
He's 61 years old.
I overcompensated when you said it must be the Suits. 67. 61. I would have guessed in the 60s, so.
I have not been on the Jay Wright beat, so there might actually be an answer to this that I just haven't seen. I just wonder if he did what he wanted to do, and if he. Some coaches seem like they really, really feel the call of returning to coaching, but every once in a while you get one of those guys who's just like, I'm actually good. Like how, switching sports again, but how many was it a decade that Bill Cowher was in every single head coaching hiring cycle? I don't even think he did interviews. It was just, that chin, and he held the Lombardi up, and I wonder if Bill Cowher would want this job.
Look, here's the thing.
He seems happy on TV.
If the Chiefs were to move on from Andy Reid, I do wonder if Bill Cowher's the first phone call you make. Plus, I saw a real estate agent that was with Bill Cowher's wife that was around town that was looking for houses. So it's got to be Bill Cowher the next. How many cities did Bill Cowher's wife look for real estate?
Like actually 35. It's like there are only 32 teams.
Well, you know what? They wanted multiple houses. They wanted multiple houses, one near the stadium, one a little bit further out, so they can have some nice land for some horses to roam. Depending on whether it's L.A. I don't care.
We'll find it's a lot of money.
Let's figure that out, man. Come on.
CBS gets you paid.
Yeah, I don't know what Jay Wright's future is going to be, but it's a great question as to who's the next. What team is going to throw gobs of money at him?
Mm-hmm.
They've got it. I'll tell you, if there's a team that's going to throw whatever it takes and say, write it, fill out this check. It's blank. Fill out this check. It would be Kentucky. If it's a college team, like whatever it takes, Jay Wright. NBA, I don't know.
Very quickly on the Jay Wright NBA thing, like if he is wanting to do like the Sixers thing, because that's in Philadelphia and that's been mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
Doc Rivers' seat is about lukewarm or about room temperature, so like that's not unbelievable.
Yeah, so he could be hanging out for a couple of years and say, "I'll just be the next head coach of the Sixers whenever they decide."
Whenever you want me, call when you're ready. I'll be here.
Yeah, I'm hanging out. I'll do some TV. Made a lot of money. Got a lot of suits. Just talk some college basketball, and I don't have to be out there recruiting. Which is part of like college basketball coaches that the next step when they get to the NBA or want to get to the NBA, do they ever return to college basketball? Well, if they fail in the NBA, but do they return? It's like, well, Billy Donovan. Mm-hmm. Go get Billy the Kid. Kentucky, go get Billy the Kid. Go get Billy Donovan.
Where's Fred Hoiberg?
Why would Donovan want to return to college basketball? Why? You want to deal with all the recruiting and stuff? No, not at all. Like I still think there's a chance Bill Self ends up in an NBA sideline somewhere, but if he does, I mean, I don't know that he ever returns to college basketball again. Plus, if you're going to leave Kansas, you're probably done with college basketball. Whereas Jay Wright, Villanova, good school, won national championships, but if you leave Villanova, it's like, well, I can return and coach at Kentucky or Kansas or something like that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I've got control of all these knobs over here.
Wow.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We'll hang out with Mick Shaffer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. KSHB 41 Sports Director. Sad fans. Whoop. Final regular season edition of Sad Fans. Hoping for 3 more after today. Sad fans. Opposing fan bases. That'd be great. And some Shot Clock reviews. See what we will review today. And we'll talk some college hoops, some NFL with Mick Shaffer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. So good stuff. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We'll get to more of your texts as well. Text says if Andy Reid retires, trade a draft pick for Mike Tomlin. Okay. Yeah.
9-8 every year at worst.
I'm in.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
This is going to be so stupid, but here we go.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We should probably do a show on the air, guys. Jason Anderson,
Whoa,
Josh
what?
Brisco, Beards. Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41 Sports Director.
Is this always on the air?
That conversation in the break is off into the ether and will never be heard from again, thankfully.
Some of the best segments we've done today have been off the air.
Everything is recorded. Nothing's ever deleted. We're going to find that ether someday, and everything's going to be in there.
Nope, I doubt it. Do we have video, though, that we can cut from Mick?
Good. Was
Okay.
the payoff worth it there, Beards?
It was good.
Fantastic. Okay.
Pratfalls. I'm like the girl in the meme at the movie theater when she has the gigantic thing of popcorn
Yes.
and she intentionally falls and stumbles over herself multiple times. Make sure she throws the popcorn into the air and then bites it. Yeah.
Every infomercial ever.
Uh-huh.
That's
Pretty
right.
much.
Yeah, and so we never know when we're going to get the pratfall from Mick Shaffer, or it's just going to walk in and say, hey, guys, it's been a rough day, or whatever's going on, or you can tell when he's in a better mood is when, like, all of a sudden he's falling through the door and dropping a drink. What's going on? And he can't catch his balance until the last second, and like, oh, hey, Mick, what's up, man? That was today.
I got a buddy that judges how much he's going to hate a comedy by how early in the trailer there's head trauma, right? There's some sort of pratfall and somebody gets knocked out and we'll laugh at it, right? The earlier in the trailer there's head trauma, because that's the go-to.
Is it better or worse?
It's going to be worse.
Okay, yeah.
They're not going to rely on real comedy.
That's right. Yeah, the writing will not be.
Yes.
I mean, it'll just be so elementary.
But basically every Adam Sandler film. Probably.
That doesn't have that. That is very upscale,
It is
high level.
highbrow.
Yes, commentary. That gives you social commentary while also making you laugh.
Exactly.
Very rare.
While also starring Dan Patrick and Shaquille O'Neal.
Incredibly rare.
What else could you want from a movie?
Yeah, I'm not sure what else you get from that movie. I mean, we'll do shot clock reviews. We'll find if there are other things you can get from a movie. I don't know.
Do shot clock
In
reviews,
the in the next segment, we'll also have a little Sad Fans This segment.
Oh, I love it.
Sad Fans This segment. You know where there are not sad fans, Mick?
In Kansas City? Oh, in Georgia.
There are not. Well, yeah, there are not sad fans in Georgia. That's true.
Well, they might be Falcons fans too. So
that's a good point.
Sad.
There are not sad fans in Athens, Georgia. There are also not sad basketball fans in Kansas with KU and K-State,
or in Kansas City with Mizzou. Throw them
Mizzou.
in there.
Yeah, that's true. Tonight,
We'll
see what they do against A&M. But last night was another one of those nights where you've got KU and K-State both playing at the same time, finding ways to win.
Separate times. One
yeah,
ended.
I meant same night. Sorry,
Yep,
same night. But last night was back to back, so you got to watch.
I loved
watch
it last
one
night.
And then
Absolutely,
me too. Yeah, I loved it too because if they were at the same time, I might have missed Keontae Johnson's dunk because the KU and the Oklahoma game was much closer than what K-State and Oklahoma State was at that time.
Well, it was 3 at that time. That made it a 5-point game.
Was that really what it was?
Yeah, with like that was to put it away. That was like, well, not really to put it away, but that was.
Just
it
felt
ended up
like
being
they
the
had
last.
control of that game for so long that I never really felt like that was in danger. So, I guess KU coming back versus K-State holding the Cowboys off at bay sort of
so
had that
Oklahoma
different feel.
State cut it to 1 with
right,
like
they did,
2
when
or
they hit
3
that
minutes
3.
left, and then I think it was like 40 seconds left, 3-point game. I don't know if there's a single Keontae Johnson highlight without Marquise Noel and vice versa. I mean, they're just partners in crime.
Yeah, and that one's the best of the season so far.
Yeah,
is that
like
that play?
Any team season, I think, so far. Because that was the
he catches it, then he catches it with one hand, then he cocks it back, and then if it was NBA jams, the net would burn. That's how hard he slammed it through the net. NBA jam, the net would be burned.
That's an important basket right there, right?
Yeah.
The smart play is to catch it with 2 hands, just kind of lay it in, make sure I'm under control. Maybe even come down with it. I'm so open, come down with it, lay it up and in. That's the move you pull off in like the first 4 minutes of the game. Right? I'm gonna try this.
Or you're up by 6 or something like that, and it's 30 seconds.
But it was
to play.
very easy, as it turns out, for Keontae Johnson to pull that off.
A lot of things that look easy on the floor for Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel. And Noel pulling up from NBA range in big shots.
It's another league beyond the NBA. Is there one that's just whatever the Space
Logo.
Jam?
Logo. I'll just go ahead and
He was
set up here.
literally like 6 inches away
close.
from the Power Cat that one time.
It was that close, and he's done it a number of times. He did it at Texas, big shots when you needed it. Noel stepping up, and then last night same thing. Oh, here's another big shot from Marquise Noel.
He's adopting the Steph Curry approach to practice.
Make everything.
I'm a little dude. I can't really rely on taking conventional threes all the time because guys are going to be in my face. Steph always practices, fading away, right, going sideways. I'm just going to practice it from 30 feet. That's where I'm going to take my threes because, the guy guarding me might be 6'4", but he ain't coming out this far. And then the one time they did, they fouled him on a 4-point play.
That's right, yeah. They did head out that far, and it was just pure Barry. Back of the rim, straight down. That just pure shot.
Does it concern you guys at all that Keontae Johnson's scouting report didn't include the fact that he can just levitate? I've watched this dunk 50 times now. I'm not sure I'm exaggerating. He just... The catching the ball with one hand and cocking it back and then bringing it. I mean, it's an incredible dunk. But he just hangs in the air for a full beat longer than a human being should.
There are a few of us that can do that.
Watch how
you said
much,
few of us, not a few of us, right?
Watch how much they're on the same page. This is Kelsey
Us and
Mahomes
humanity
level with Noel and Johnson. I think Noel saw it way before Keontae did. Keontae's kind of looking up the court to maybe set a pick, and then all of a sudden he notices he's open. As he points his finger up for the oop, Noel's already ready to throw it. I mean, that was it happened in a split second.
He kind of double clutches it, but his eyes are going towards Johnson the whole time here.
I mean, it was brilliant that he was able to see it.
Yep.
That he was able, the guys around him where he was at, and able to see Johnson in that moment and then get it there.
Well, it's a great point guard, right? You're not watching your guys. You're really watching the defense, and you're going to automatically know where the holes in the defense are. And if you're on the same page as your offensive players, they should be there. And he was there.
I'll step up and say that, I think a lot of people probably in this boat, but certainly I was, that when Nigel Pack went to Miami, I wasn't going, well, they kept Noel. That's hugely important that, Noel can score. He can do some things, he can handle the rock. He can be a point guard that can calm some things down. But, Pack is gone, but they're keeping Noel, so at least you got that going for you.
I thought he was a guy
about Nigel Pack.
Yeah, I thought he was a guy that got points off like Nigel Pack's runoff, right? That's what I thought.
And instead, he's the Big 12 Player of the Year right now. Through 4 games. He's averaging 28 points and 10 assists per game in the 4 games in the Big 12.
Who's going to be on this all Big 12 team? Because Noel and Johnson, they have to do one of those deals. We're putting 10 on the first team.
That's right, 10 first-team players.
Noel and Johnson are on it right now. Jalen Wilson's on it right now.
This is not a year to where you ended up third-team Big 12 and you would take offense to that.
Yeah.
It's like, how was he not second? Because there are a number of players this year.
Like Grady Dick, probably any other year would be first team, and I could see him sliding to second team.
Yeah.
Look, it's early. We're 4 games in and
14 more
18
games.
schedules.
We'll see what happens.
But
in the
that
next
Miles
14
kid from
games.
TCU is probably going to end up leading the conference in scoring.
He said big shots.
Sherfield was a stud for Oklahoma last night.
I'll say this: even if he's not like Big 12 Player of the Year, he's got to be like most improved player.
Yeah,
I mean to go from like
he's got to be most improved player.
He's been unbelievable.
I think I told you the story when we were at the Big 12 media days. We asked him what his goals were. He's like Big 12 Player of the Year.
Okay.
In my mind, I was doing that. I was laughing.
Yeah, my goal is to levitate. All right. And Keontae Johnson's like, I actually accomplished that 10 years ago. But that's a cool goal for you. No big deal.
But there was so much unknown about this team, and I think that contributed largely to them being picked 10th in the conference. As we said, we got to figure out who's picking TCU 7th in the Big 12 in football and K-State 10th.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that game Monday night showed that TCU was actually the 7th best team in the Big 12 against Georgia, which
it did. I bet there's a lot of Big 12 teams that could have played Georgia closer.
I'm not sure there's a team in America that would have beaten Georgia that night. There were teams that could have played them close, but the way Georgia was playing that night, I'm not sure.
No.
Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, throw another team out there.
TCU really needed Ohio State to make that field goal.
if a team was beating Georgia that night, they were playing their A++ game because Georgia played as well as you can play, and they're so talented, and they played like they were pissed off for something.
Jason.
They played like Kansas State had like talked bleep on their mom and hit on their sister.
Jason, are you barreling towards a Georgia could beat an NFL team take?
No.
I'm bracing myself.
What about an
because I haven't
XFL
seen
team?
any yet.
What about an XFL team? Georgia versus an XFL team.
Perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
I think I think the XFL team would be favored.
Why couldn't they beat an NFL team? You know how many NFL players are on Georgia's roster right now?
Do you know how many NFL players are on the Texans roster?
Probably 10.
53.
53.
Well, only 48 when it's game day. You know, it's game day. We said we had the number that we put out on Tuesday, or at least that was floating around there that night. But just, Georgia loses 15 players to the NFL draft, and then in the national championship game, they have 50 more players on their roster that are 4 and 5 stars than TCU. 5-0. They lost 15 to the draft, and they still have 5-0 more 4 and 5 star players on their roster.
At how many TCU had?
They had 17.
Yeah, that's a lot for the Big 12.
Pretty decent amount that TCU
and I'm
had
sure
17.
it's like 15 or 16 or 4 stars.
But they didn't have 67.
No.
4 and 5.
When I heard that stat, I'm like, wait a second. Those seem high on both ends.
Hold on.
But
it feels more like 50 and 10. Let's not exaggerate here. Come on.
Well, I mean, you think about it. It's 67. So divide that out by 4 classes. I know it's not 4 classes now. You probably have the remnants of like 7 classes now on a college football team. But over 4 classes, that's 15-ish, 16 more than that. 16 or 17 per class that are 4 and 5 star.
Kirby Smart, since he got there, 2017 first recruiting class. And I threw in this year, too, because a number of true freshmen were out making plays on the field. Bear Alexander, like the 8th rated recruit in that class. It's out there being Bear Alexander. What a great name for a huge defensive tackle. In those 6 years, Georgia averaged the number 2 recruiting class for 6 years. So 6 years of the number 2 recruiting class. That's what it looks like. It's like, wow, how'd Georgia get in this spot? Because they recruited their asses off, and they're in Georgia, which is it might be the new hotbed
I think
of
it
recruiting.
is because you have amazing athletes there. You're connected to Florida.
Yeah.
You're right next to great football states all around you. And if it's Alabama, if it's Carolinas, if it's, even Tennessee, I mean, I think it is the hotbed now.
I had thought that, with Alabama and Nick Saban, what they were doing, that if there was going to be a next Alabama, it would be Clemson. And maybe Clemson turns it back on. It's like, turns it back on. They lost a couple of games this year. Yeah, they suck. But their run for 4 years, 15-19, was pretty awesome. And they've got NFL quarterbacks, and we'll see what this true freshman, will look like. You saw what he could be in the bowl game when they played him. You saw that he says against Tennessee, right? That he had some
he was good. He could run a little bit.
He tried to run
some moxie.
He tried to run way too often, but that's fine. But I thought it would be.
I didn't see Trevor Lawrence there, though.
Right, yeah. Right. I thought, okay, then Clemson is right there challenging with Alabama. And Kirby Smart, I thought, was a good coach. And, at Georgia, where he went, learned from Saban, and in a hotbed, I didn't see, okay, this is the next dynasty there. There was always that chance with Georgia, because they've got the recruiting ground, because they have top 10 recruiting classes almost every year. But it's like, can you put it all together? And we'll see when Kirby Smart starts losing assistant coaches and has to replenish that and bring other guys in. And NIL, how much does that change? Or do they just keep chugging along and being that top 5, number 3, number 2 class, number 1 class in America? And we're talking about Kirby Smart winning 5, 6 championships. But, I asked Braden Gall yesterday, I'm like, okay, is there a coach-school combination that if we're saying, is that next? Is there one out there? And I don't mean like the coach has to be at the school right now. Like it could have been 2 years ago. You going, you know what? If Brian Kelly ends up at like LSU and is there with his family and really gets back into his roots, that could be just that connection. I don't think it's going to happen. Why would he leave Notre Dame? But if Brian Kelly got there, I don't know. Like if maybe it's already connected with Lincoln Riley and USC. That if he's controlling the California recruits and they go there, that it might be something that turns into that. But you're also then having to surpass what Georgia has going on right now, the way that Georgia has surpassed what Alabama had going on. Just
Did you see David Pollock, Georgia grad, say that in front of
it's great.
Nick Saban?
It's great.
Love it.
And then the next day, he was asked, he's like, so you were sitting next to me. He's like, I didn't even realize, who I was sitting next to when I was talking about that. He's like, look, he was like, it was halftime. We weren't talking about the game. The game was over at halftime.
38-7.
What are we talking about? We're talking about that. And he's like, look, Nick was fine. He didn't say anything. He was good with it. He's not mad or anything. It's like, just because he didn't say anything doesn't mean he wasn't like annoyed or frustrated. But Braden Gall had a good point. He said when David Pollock said that, he's like, there was a little tick from Nick Saban that he was like, I should not be here. I should be out recruiting or making my program better.
He's recruiting being there. I
know, that's what I said.
What a nice little perk.
Yeah.
Him every year.
Oh, you guys are watching Georgia, but you're watching me too.
And then Prime's on there as well. And
yeah, of course he's on there. You gotta be recruiting. Always be recruiting out there. So,
but yeah, I mean, even when there was no running up the score in that game. They put the backups in, but even those backups weren't gonna ever go to TCU, right? Those are 4-star backups, or just 5-star guys that are freshmen, and it's absurd the amount of talent they have. We'll see if mentioning Prime, if he can like spread it out a little bit more, and they go to Colorado, and
it's beautiful there. You can, and so which brings us to our point that how good Marquise Noel's been.
Right.
Just has been just so good. Picked 10th in the Big 12, K-State is, and they have already surpassed their win total of a year ago of 14.
And look, and it's not like I don't know if there is a worst team in the conference. Oklahoma State's going to catch the brunt end of all this stuff. I think their 4 losses were by 5 points before last night. Lost by 7 last night, but made it close in that game too. But I mean, K-State wins. 2 of those 4 wins are at Texas and at Baylor.
Yeah.
You've knocked off, preseason poll, 2 of the 3 toughest games in the league, right?
I wouldn't have expected this early in the season that I'd be looking at the bottom of the standings and say, Baylor and Texas Tech are 0-7? Mm-hmm. Hold on. In a year where it's like the Big 12 might get 10 teams in, all these teams are so good. Who's at the bottom? I don't know. Iowa State's, they're good. They got some players. But Kansas State's probably at the bottom. They got all new players, and we'll see what Oklahoma State's going to be. 0-7, Baylor and Texas Tech. No, whatever. Shut up. That's not going to happen. But yeah.
How about before the NFL playoffs start? Both Kansas State and Missouri have surpassed their win totals from last year.
It's absolutely amazing. We talked about what the win totals were going to be in college football.
What that tells me, playoffs start way too late. They should be going by now.
That's right.
We should be ready for the divisional game this week.
Maybe if they didn't have 18 weeks and 17 games. But they do, and that means the Chiefs played this past weekend on Saturday against the Raiders. And that means we have sad fans from Reddit.
That's Raiders got to be the best, right?
Beards, do you need to set anything else up here? Are you going to
Raiders
for yourself?
All
right.
Raiders fans know how to find Reddit.
Beard sometimes he'll have a painting up and he'll say, "Look at my brush strokes.
Oh yeah.
Look at my composition." Sometimes he puts a painting up and he just walks. It's like Banksy. It just appears on the wall and then he disappears in a mist.
Well, let's hear that mist right now.
And now, a list of things that Las Vegas Raiders fans said on Reddit. At least we didn't blow a 20-point lead. That was the worst season finale since Game of Thrones. Top 5 wide receiver and the leading rusher, and we score 1 pity touchdown. Crying, laughing emoji. What a not fun NFL season. Comment. Same different year. Reply. Same time next year. I'm glad Carr wasn't there to be a distraction. Comment. Get ready for the second dark age, fellas. Reply. It's a 35-year dark age with like 5 good years scattered around it. Guess what? We suck. Thank God that season is over. Can we get a countdown clock until McHead is fired like they had for Gruden? Who's McDip gonna blame this one on? We held Mahomes to 202 yards and 1 touchdown, and Kelsey had no touchdowns. We won, right? I dare Mark to say Josh McDaniels did a good job this year. I dare this dimwit. crayon-eating McDumb ruined this season. We got rid of Carr for that bullshit? Burn in hell, McDaniels. Comment. Carr led this team to a 30-29 loss in Kansas City, and we get absolutely destroyed at home against a team using its backups. Definitely Carr's fault that we are who we are. What a joke. Reply. Please, Carr didn't even sack Mahomes once that game. He wasn't helping us today. That certainly was one of the Raiders games that was ever played. Comment. Ted Lasso taught me about relegation. Can that happen, please? Reply. The XFL's about to fire up again. The Raiders couldn't even compete with the Vipers. Josh McDaniels, count your days. I want my time back I spent watching this pathetic team. Comment. What would firing McDaniels even do? Make our players play better? Like, get real. It would just start the cycle of a new system all over again. Reply. Well, for starters, it would give me hope. Comment. Stidham looked good. Reply. Said no intelligent football fan ever. Lions and Jaguars officially figured it out before we did. Just know that. If it's always the darkest before the dawn, the next year is looking pitch black. Comment. I'd like to go into next season with genuine hope. What do we need to do for that to happen? One reply. Change teams. Another reply. Vince McMahon buys the team. Response. And there it is. The single stupidest thing I'm going to see all day. And now, the runner-up. What a season. I will be sure to buy a season ticket and get a bowl cut. Thank you, Mark Davis. And now, the winner of things that Raiders fans said on Reddit. Bring back Gruden. And now, a list of things that LA Chargers fans said on Reddit after losing to the Denver Broncos and leaving their starters in basically the whole game.
Bonus. Yes. Oh, here we go.
They really had to make a meaningless game somehow embarrassing, huh? So, just to recap, we were one of the most injured teams throughout the season. We played our asses off over 5 weeks to make it to the playoffs.
Yep.
The football gods allowed us a meaningless final game to finally rest our starters.
Correct.
Yeah.
Many of whom had missed several weeks. And our coach says, that you're all playing?
Correct.
And the player who literally proved how valuable he was to our offense over the season and who was signed to an extension in the offseason gets carted off the field in a meaningless game.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right? What a idea gone horribly wrong. A nice momentum-building loss for Staley. All of the confidence I had before this game has been immediately deflated. I feel terrified to play the Jags now. S-tier copium. The loss today will make us hungrier next week. Staley is the dumbest smart guy ever.
Wow.
Thank God this clown fiesta is finally over. Looking like complete idiots going into the playoffs. This coaching staff never ceases to amaze me. I can understand letting the starters get a couple of reps in, but playing them for almost the entire game when the game means nothing in the long run is astounding. Before the game, I thought the Staley criticism was a bit unfair. But after that debacle, I want him fired if we lose next week. What a embarrassment this game was. Jags by 9,000 next week. No heart. Staley needs to put the clown paint on for his presser. Absolutely unacceptable coaching today. For every injury in today's game, can Staley get punched in the nuts? Maybe then he would understand the pain and put away his Napoleon complex in a worthless game. And now, the winner of things that LA Chargers fans said on Reddit. Less mentum. And now, a list of things that Green Bay Packers fans said on Reddit.
Yes!
After losing to the Detroit Lions and not making the playoffs.
Yes!
Rodgers can be cut, and I wouldn't give half a right now. This was a playoff game, and we played like it. Joe Barry didn't do enough this season to warrant being defensive coordinator next season. So, of course, he'll be back. Guess who isn't going to lose to the 49ers in the playoffs this year? 25% of our wins came against teams drafting number 1 overall, and we lost to the Lions twice. Who's ready for Packers off-season drama? Will Rodgers stay a Packer? Will the Packers make good draft picks? Who stays, who goes, and who comes in? Find out in the next season of Days of Our Packers. Matt Flynn would have won this game. Seattle has got to be the worst place to be a Packers fan as a fan who watched the game in a bar in Seattle. Yeah. To quote Ted Lasso, it's the hope that kills you. And it got me real good this year.
Oh.
And now, the winner of things that Green Bay Packers fans said on Reddit. The person I feel bad for is Brock Purdy. He's missing out on a 350-yard passing game, 100-yard rushing game next week. It would be the only 100-yard rushing game in his career. And now, a list of things that Houston Texans fans said on Reddit. After winning against the Colts, but losing out on the number 1 overall pick. Two-point conversion successful. Me, 3 hours ago. These Bryce Young height concerns are overblown. He'll be great in the NFL. Me now. You really need to stack 2 Bryce Youngs on top of each other to make one Kyler Murray. I hate this poverty franchise. See y'all next year. Comment. How the hell did we tank our tanking? Reply. The tank commanders went too far into their tanking realm and tanked our tank, but didn't go far enough to tank our tanking the tank. Worst victory in franchise history. Comment. Listen, y'all are mad about losing the first overall pick, and I get it, and I hear you. But the Texans were just following the number 1 rule of this subreddit. The Colts. Them Colts. They can suck it, and we won. Reply. But we didn't the Colts. We lost a position in the draft order, and they moved up. Irsay. Let me get this straight, today. You couldn't beat a team tanking for the first overall pick? Texas man loses last bit of hope he didn't know he had left. Lovie Smith belongs in jail. The Texans, I'm a Houston Roughnecks fan now. If I ever see Lovie in person, it's on sight. Bryce Young kind of small, though. Bears trade back. Colts take the better quarterback. And the Texans will get the bust somehow. Depression. Not only is this the worst franchise in football, this is the worst franchise in all of sports. There actually isn't a worse franchise all across the major sports than the Texans. Podcasters and sports media don't even cover the Texans games. They skip over them when making picks because they're so irrelevant. Then they go and win one game they should lose and give the franchise any hope. Sell the team, move cities, rebrand. Football gods give us powers to us. Lovie Smith giving the Texans the middle finger on the way out, crying, laughing emoji. We picking up Derek Carr then? At least the Texans have the respect of Joe Judge. This is worse than when they choked to the Chiefs that one time. Even if we draft Young, we don't have any good fat guys to protect him. Somebody go put a brick through Lovie's windshield. It's got to be parked at NRG somewhere. And this is why you don't fire someone before they're actually fired.
That's a great point.
And now, the winner of things that Houston Texans fans said on Reddit. Comment. I'm filing a police report on Lovie Smith. Reply. Breaking and entering your hopes and dreams isn't illegal.
Wow. That was a magnum opus right there from
Beards got here at 4 a.m. this morning.
Really?
Probably
not.
no. Unlikely.
God, no.
I think you covered all of Reddit. Is there anything? I don't think there's anything left on there.
All the good ones, at least.
That was
I'm
good.
breathless, Beards. That was
It's pretty good. There you go.
breathtaking.
Sad fans from Reddit. Raiders, Broncos, or Raiders, Chargers, Texans.
There was,
And Packers.
And
and
Packers.
Whew.
A quadruple feature sad fans?
Wow. It's better than a drive-in movie theater. You only
Really
get 2
is.
that night. Usually got to pay a lot more for the quadruple. News in the NFL as we go to break. Lamar Jackson not practicing today for the Ravens.
Sad fans on Reddit, Ravens editions, Beards, hit it!
And Tyler Huntley at practice still not throwing with tendonitis in his right arm.
Make it a double, Beards.
So
They're sad.
So Sharpie, the Bengals, onto the
Anthony
divisional round.
Brown and Brett Hundley are the quarterbacks that are taking the snaps.
Wait.
With the,
they have two Hundleys?
Brett Hundley. Tyler
There's
Huntley.
Huntley and
There's
a
a Hundley.
Hundley.
There's Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley, Anthony Brown,
Isn't
and
that a
Brett
car brand?
Hundley. Woo! There you go. That 6-3 matchup looking awful spicy. No. not
Chiefs,
this
Bills, and Bengals all got first-round bias.
That's right. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will continue rolling. We got Shot Clock reviews coming up next.
Come out and see Stephen St. John Thursday from 11 to 1 at Tequila Harry's and celebrate the start.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
And they'll never go back down this route again. Coaches are going to be able to do whatever they want. They can pay, they can whatever. They'll deal with the NCAA. They're not going to have to deal with the FBI ever again.
As someone who didn't watch the show, I completely agree.
On Sports Radio 810.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, Beards. Mick Shaffer hanging out with us. Mizzou in action tonight against Texas A&M. 7:30 tonight. Mizzou and A&M. Mizzou 2-1 in SEC play. A&M undefeated, sitting at 2-0. Mizzou sitting at number 20 in the country. K-State, number 11. The first team or the team that had the highest jump from unranked to 11 in the AP poll history.
Is it history?
I believe it's
Had to
so.
be something close to that.
It's something extreme like that, going from this team was not ranked.
And to do it this late in the season, usually like late November, early December, you see some big swings in the poll, right? We're like, okay, we really missed this team. They just went out and they beat Duke and Michigan State back-to-back weeks. There you are, you're 15th out of nowhere, or teams that just tank and go from 4th in the country to out of the poll in like a week or two. But to do it in like almost mid-January, to make that sort of jump, there was one fella online I saw that didn't rank the Cats, and he felt the wrath of K-State Twitter.
That typically happens when there's one guy out there that's kind of a holdout. It's like, no, I'm not. Not going to do
good
it.
for him. I think he puts his poll out every single week. I think he does radio, which I don't trust those guys, in D.C.
The worst.
And he's like, a lot of tough decisions out there. And then people start saying, what about Kansas State? They just beat two of the teams that are in your poll at their place. Baylor and Texas, they have a way better record, yada, yada. He's like, yeah, a lot of tough decisions. And they're really like, that shouldn't have been one of them.
That's one of those tough
That's
decisions.
an easy one.
Could have helped you make the tough decisions easier because you've got one fewer spot to hand out.
I've often wondered, and look, if you have that AP vote, people may take it, more serious than others. When Soren's voting in the AP, I believe he takes it as serious as anybody
else.
I don't know if anybody. I would say I don't think anybody takes it more. I would say I don't think anybody takes it more serious than some people. Somebody may take it as serious as
Might be
Soren.
tied in the seriousness category,
but not more. He puts a lot of thought into it of where because anybody that wants to come at him, he's got like point by point by point by point of exactly.
He made up a list. He's ready to use this list for Feinbaum. Never even touched it because Feinbaum's at just such a lower kind of sports intellectual level than him.
Yeah.
Not a lot of Serens out there. In a lot of ways, Seren, but especially when it comes to, watching games, knowing them, taking them seriously, all that stuff.
Also, Mick just called Paul Feinbaum dumb.
Compared to Seren, absolutely.
I think I just want to make that the liner.
Sports dumb.
Yeah.
He could be smart in other fields.
He has glasses. I assume he's smart at something.
Balding with glasses. Yeah.
Great point.
He looks like he could be a professor
When you're
somewhere.
balding and you have glasses, you have to pick up the slack somewhere else, and usually it's with
You
your
have
brain.
And he dresses up for TV, so it really gives you that sort of authoritative of nerd presence.
Your brain is working at a higher capacity than others that it can't even hold hair.
Right. It's because you're releasing that heat directly. Your brain's creating so much heat that you've got to find a way to get it out into the world.
And I've never listened to his show. Is it any more than him just opening up the phone lines and listening to idiots make their takes?
No.
Okay.
And also, I got to do that. It's like being faster than the slowest guy with the bear chasing you. Paul Feinbaum's smarter than his callers. Like he knows more than the guys calling in, going pow. So you just have to be smarter than the Alabama fan on the phone.
So, Are You Smarter Than an Alabama Fan on the Phone is the new game
there we
show.
go.
Hosted by Jeff Foxworthy. Hey. I love it.
But I was bringing that up because I do wonder if there's I have no idea who this guy is in D.C., but is there a chance that it's like, oh, bleep, I just forgot. I just left him off my ballot.
That has to happen,
and turned
right?
it in. And just tough decisions, guys. A lot of because
there's 400 Division I teams. I could absolutely see that.
So, but can you then go, man, I just totally forgot. Okay, cool. You've lost your. You can't vote. He would be just destroyed. Other than it's just tough decisions that are out there.
I would bet whoever's monitoring the AP voters aren't maybe there's nobody monitoring that, and maybe they don't care. They
like you
probably
get to the
realize that
bottom, like
happens.
20 to 25, like you're like, oh crap, I totally forgot about that team.
Oh, I got 16.
I bet there's a ton of guys out there that just do the group think and just kind of look at last week's poll and kind of adopt that as their own. And I'll make the 17th team in this poll my 18th team, and 20, it's not 22nd. Other than that, it's going to be the same.
913-912-4810. It's a story from The Athletic. The Boston Red Sox Athletic. Xander Bogaerts is gone. Trevor Story had surgery, so where do the Red Sox go from here? Spring training opens up a little more than a month from now. Surgery,
Florida,
blah, 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 blah.
Don't give out
Oh,
make Mick guess the name that appears here. If this is the story that I was glancing through earlier,
it's probably the story you were.
I have to imagine it is.
Yep. So scrolling down. I want to get to the
Jason scrolling.
part
Jason
of the story.
Scrolling to the part
that,
of the story, looking for the story, not Trevor's story, the Athletic story. Jason's
According
looking.
to a major league source, the Red Sox have discussed a trade for shortstop Mick
Adalberto Mondesi.
Royals shortstop Adalberto Mondesi, who
Do
is as risk reward as it gets.
No.
There's
as risk as it gets.
There's absolutely.
He's going to play 162 games for them, Mick. Don't you get this?
What's the
yes,
reward?
over 10 years.
Getting sushi at a gas station is as risk reward as it gets.
There's absolutely no indication, however, that the conversations were any more than exploratory. And it's unclear whether the Red Sox have genuine interest or were simply keeping tabs on every possibility. 3 years ago, Mondesi seemed to be one of the game's emerging young stars. His bat was inconsistent, but his speed and defense were exceptional. And even after spending parts of 7 seasons in the big leagues, he's still only 27 years old. Boy, he's only 24. Well, Mondesi's only 25. Here's the thing. I mean, we talk about it, but he's still only 26. Yeah. And now, he's only 27 years old.
At the prime of his baseball life.
Injuries have limited Mondesi to only 50 games the past 2 seasons, so it's so hard to know.
On his clock, he's only like 23.
Exactly. That's the way to look at it.
So hard to know what the Red Sox could expect from him this season, both in terms of production and, basic availability. Yeah, that second part's the main one.
It's the big one.
What to expect from him.
JJ Piccolo is such a good writer, man. Keep reading.
Considerations.
Even if the Red Sox were to acquire him, would he be an everyday shortstop, a switch-hitting speedster off the bench, or an inevitable addition to the 60-day injured list?
Oh,
I love that. I love that dismount. It's a great dismount. Well, how do we fill the 60-day IL? Let's go get Mondesi. Let's go get Mondesi and do that.
We got to have people on it. It's a rule.
Hey, look.
to be healthy. So
I can take that $3 million profit and make it look like a $3 million loss. Okay, how do we fill this IL spot? Let's go get Mondesi. Now we got guys on IL. Now we're just deferring some of these payments. We're good. Let's go make this trade here. So there you go. Red Sox, according to a Major League Baseball source, have inquired about trading for Adalberto Mondesi.
I think the Giants would take a third probably. So start there. I just think we need to get Mondesi and Kadarius Toney on the same programs, get them in the building together, get them on that TB12 pliability method,
cash considerations,
and then boom.
So I'm assuming that you are open to any call that comes your way. So JJ probably took the call. How quickly would Dayton have hung up on the Red Sox?
I know.
So we're thinking about Adalberto. Shut up! Hey, you'll say that. You watch your mouth. Don't you dare speak evil like that.
He'll say that.
You'll say that. It's one thing if we were talking Bobby Witt here, but you want to call me and disrespect my family, my organization, my job, a guy who's like a son to me, who's never home, and Adalberto Mondesi?
So is he just monologuing this to his door since he's hung up, or is he doing this still on the phone?
Good point, Beards.
That's exactly right. He actually calls him back. Let me tell you something, buddy. All right?
Continuity is so important.
I've calmed down. I wrote an angry letter. I threw it out.
Ready to talk now.
Ready to talk now.
I would actually like to speak to your manager, if we could. I would love to speak to your manager.
Wait, I'm the general manager. I just want the regular manager.
Well, I don't know.
I want the owner.
I don't know. We got a guy whose Twitter handle says, I do all things through him. Well, hold on. Let's actually talk about Adalberto Mondesi here. Is this guy, what position is this guy? Actually, you know what? I don't care. What position? You know what? Let's just do it. Let's get it done. Let's find out a way to make this trade happen. We'll wrap up the show next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Hey, I'm Mick Shaffer. I was in the lake this weekend. Bah. I don't like fish. Hey, Mick.
So, not even like shrimp or anything?
No, I don't like shrimp and none of that.
Interesting. Like
I hate
scallops.
my family and fish.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Tech says that the Sad Fans was an ab workout. It's pretty good. A lot of laughing.
10 minutes, too.
Yeah, I don't
Was
like
that thing 10 minutes?
workouts the longer
Yeah, it
it
was.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you. Good for you.
I think
News.
the longest one I did was also a Texans one. It was after the comeback game. It was about 13 minutes, if I remember correctly.
I bet that was
Holy heck.
dumpster. You should break that one out just to play it again.
Oh, I've got it somewhere.
That one had the beat switches and everything, man. That was Beards. Sometimes Beards is a producer, and there was production in that.
You know what? Cadence, the emphasis, the pronunciation, and sometimes the enunciation on different
Let me see if I can
words.
go find how long that was real quick.
So good. News out of the NFL. Not surprising news, but Lamar Jackson is not at practice today. It is a quote from Ian Rappaport. Uphill battle for Lamar Jackson to play this weekend. And Tyler Huntley, Lamar's backup, did not throw today, still dealing with that arm tendonitis, which is what kept him out of the game. Anthony Brown taking most of the reps, which would be the same quarterback that they had last week when they ended up losing to the Bengals. So
Line moved up, I think you said earlier.
Yep, it moved from 7 to 8. So we talked with Cynthia Frelund, and it was sitting at Bengals -7. Lamar not at practice. It's now Bengals -8.
Yeah, it was 13 minutes long. 12:57 if we're being exact.
Oh, that 13 minutes, that's roughly how long it took for them to blow that lead.
Uh-huh.
Right? Or the Chiefs to come back, whichever way you want to describe it. I view glass half full. Chiefs come back. 13 minutes for the Chiefs to come back there. So there you go. No Lamar Jackson, no Tyler Huntley, and probably no upsets on Sunday
I like
in the
Skyler,
AFC.
and I know that the Dolphins have given the Bills some trouble, but they put up 9 points. I guess 11, but really 9 last
The
week.
offense put up 9.
Offense put up 9. It's actually, that was the special teams. It was all-
Yeah, the only time
11 points scored by the special teams.
and the safety just
No,
went
safety
out of
was
the end
defense,
zone,
right?
right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah, that's right.
defense.
So 11
Defense,
points
yeah.
by special
Did
teams.
it get
defense
recovered by a Dolphin, or did it just roll out the back of the
I
end
think
zone?
it got recovered.
Okay, so just no offensive player for the Dolphins ever held the football in the end
No,
zone.
not recover. Would have been a touchdown had the Dolphins recovered.
No, you're
I
right. So it
think.
must have just
Yeah,
rolled out.
of the end zone, yeah.
So the Dolphins just scored by pushing the ball through things, either the end zone or the uprights.
I don't know. I think they've got a chance. No, I'm just joking. They don't. 13 points. That's the spread there in
Yikes.
Buffalo. Woo, 13 points. The Chargers have now moved to a 2-point favorite. That line's moving towards LA.
Wow. Okay.
So I feel like the last couple of days, what has felt like the public opinion has swayed more towards the Jags. But public opinion, Joe's, pros, whatever it is, but the line's moving towards the Chargers. We'll see. A couple more days, and we'll get to watch some NFL playoffs. Thank you, Mick.
You bet.
Program next.